hating on my comments is scared of me.
Thank you, Fizzle.
Smooth, what's good, baby?
I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Rufo, you can do one thing, can you care for me? I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Rufo, you can do one thing, can you care for me? You don't want a nigga like me, I'm embarrassed. Trifling nigga sliding your friends DM on careless shit. You look broke as fuck, I wouldn't even wear that shit. I don't like to be around bums, cause all they do is stare at my wrist. Pretty broke, poor ass bum, beware of that bitch. I just want your money and guns, I swear that's it. I ain't come from trust fund, I'm a baby kid. I was really in the trenches, I'm trying to change the way I live. Don't need the praises, thinks we done changed the way y'all live. Wasn't rockin' Mason Margiela, niggas was rockin' Dickies. We saved y'all niggas from buying all them swap meet pieces. Don't be mad at Pastor Rufo, that's the facts that I be preaching. Once the game is on, it's time to play ball, that's how I be beefing. I don't sip Patron, I like codeine, that's what I be drinking. Steak, shrimp, and lobster, and cheddar potatoes is how I be eating. I don't believe nothing that come out of bitch mouth, cause talk is cheap. I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Rufo, you can do one thing, can you care for me? I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Rufo, you can do one thing, can you care for me?
Damn shame, I done had this cake longer than my bitch. On the net you say I'm capping, these streets you need a wish. I was a semi-auto bandit till I linked up with a switch. Grown ass thug, baby Drakey in the crib. Don't feel no pressure on this bitch, nigga shaky where you live. Just the options you gotta watch, nigga snaking where I live. Was in the cracks for a day, them niggas janky over there. Yeah, we caught him around here, but we spanked him over there. Yeah, nigga bought paper, ain't no staples up in here. K rounds ain't take him out, but it stuck him in a chair. The way we steppin' out, bring it to a bear. Another nigga dressed up, somebody show him what to wear. Got my ear to the streets, it always tell me what to hear. Don't need no glasses on my face, show a nigga that I fear. I got my ops and they feelings, make they ass shed tears. And a rifle from Big 5, but I ain't poppin' at no deers.
I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Rufo, you can do one thing, can you care for me? I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Rufo, you can do one thing, can you care for me?
Lariano. Thank you, Fizzle.
Smooth, what's good, baby?
Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Kicked around, she live 8 miles away, I did her shady. I like when bitches hit my phone randomly with payments. You thought I was going broke, you sadly mistaken. Thuggin' on 32nd, Naomi with gang in it. If you ever see the plug box low, some know I stay equipped. I ain't talking about the ops, cause none of them niggas taking trips. Too focused, only thing I know is stay away from the pigs. I'm from the stink tin, you can't change the way I live. A lot of these niggas don't know what patience is. A boat just landed, my plug call with a gang of trysts. A boat just landed at 30 piece for the plainest wrist. The truth, a real nigga, most of these rappers a gang of pretenders. Tasmanian devils, I be round a gang of spinners. I'm from the stink team, bitch, you see it's a gang of winners. We're artistic in the booth to paint the picture. While your bitch got that shit on her lip, it ain't safe to kiss her. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady.
I remember when my nigga got taken. I slipped back so I was training while she baking. Sweet be acting up, what the fuck that nigga taking? They don't know about this life, they be faking. I pray to God, but in my dreams I see Satan. I put her with a mask like Jason. Put her with a mask, I had your big homie shaking. I remember I fucked this bitch in her basement. I like walk, but right now I need trees. Everybody hit, I feel like Chris. I tell all my little homies to go and take a risk. You niggas only been on school trips. I ain't never went to school, I was robbing shit. Tell me what you need, I got a lot of it. Me and Rufo, we gon' pull it with a lot of clips. Wanna start beef, you gon' wanna be out of it.
Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady.
Yap gangsters back in the building. Yap gangsters. We yapping these still. You getting cooked in front of your family like a Japanese meal. It's Yashu the Hibachi, and none of you niggas can stop me. It's another episode, y'all. Another episode. You know, I had to get on my political thing today. Been watching a lot of Marc Lamont on my little, my free time that I get. Been watching a lot of Marc Lamont is a prominent Democrat YouTuber or social media influencer, or however you guys categorize people nowadays on the internet. And he makes some points, and he makes it a point to actively, debate conservatives, and not just conservatives in general, actively debate black conservatives. I've seen a lot of black conservatives, cycle in and out of his channel. And I just wanted to point out a few things that I saw that were noteworthy in his appeal to CRT and why he think, all states should have to teach it for some reason. I think it's very troublesome, this pro-black agenda that's being pushed, and I've talked about it on my channel before. Normally, when someone says they're pro-black, they're actually anti-black or anti, progression of the people that you're calling and categorizing black. And why I say that is, in the midst of, our black males, illiteracy rates being high as all hell, and our graduation rates dropping, and our academic level not being where it should be, we're having arguments about government funding toward CRT or forcing CRT, critical race theory, if you guys are not familiar with being, that's the argument points in a lot of these videos that I'm going to share with you guys today. We're going to critique. And it's like, bro, really? If you really, quote unquote, pro-black, then why not argue for, a heightened, support for literacy with black males, young black males? Why not argue for, starting to implement trades back into schools? Why not argue for things of that nature? Why are you arguing for CRT, which is pretty much an ideology, and it's not going to really help anyone in the long run? So we're going to go over what was stated. And one thing I've noticed that's very hypocritical about CRT and the Democrat platform is that, okay, you're making an emphasis on trying to teach that people are racist and we live in a racist society that's built off systemic racism. Cool. Why not discuss your own platform, the history of the Democrat platform and the history of the Democrat Party on racism and its views of racism? Because if you do the research, if you do your Googles, as we say nowadays, if you do your Googles, you're going to realize that the Democrat Party has everything to do with many of the things that we bring up today when it comes to racism and actual systemic racism. I mean, oppressing us, creating laws that literally stated that and segregated black people and oppressed and repressed black people. That's the work of the Democrat Party. And it's so ironic that the Democrat Party today is pushing CRT. But if you really want to teach quote unquote CRT, you got to start unraveling the history of the Democrat Party and its treatment towards black people and how evil the Democrat Party was towards black people. You know, you always throw the title of racism or racist on Republicans, but I have to keep reminding y'all historically, the reason why we have the right to vote, citizenship, the reason why we were emancipated is because of Republicans. The party that was fighting against that on all those things were Democrats. They created the poll taxes, the literacy test, making people have to pass a literacy test. You know, ex-slaves, some of the ex-slaves could not read or write, and they would do those things to keep the citizens or the newly freed slaves at bay and pretty much oppress them and control them. That's the history of the Democratic Party. So before we even get into these videos, let me read this, and then we're going to deal with some of Marc Lamont's talking points. And I felt that he lost. I felt that he got beat by Christopher Rufo badly. He got handled. And of course, no one in his comments are going to be like, yeah, he got handled. You know, they're going to support him, especially the people that are about identity politics. And it's all about, well, there's a black man there and there's a white man he's going against. So I don't care about none of that. But before we get into any of the material, we're going to read the fair use, because we are covered under fair use, because we're going to be watching this to critique and give commentary. Okay. So Section 107 of the Copyright Act provides the statutory framework for determining whether something is a fair use and identifies the certain types of uses, such as criticism. Today, we will be giving our critiques, commentary, or we'll be commenting, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research. Going to be doing a mixture of all those things while we analyze Marc Lamont's videos and his talking points. All right, so we are covered under the fair use. So from there, first, let me just give you guys a reminder. Shout out to PragerU on the Democrats and slavery. And it's just going to show you how ironic someone that's supporting the Democratic Party and the Democrat platform, but are, you know, crying out, oh, we should teach slavery. Okay, educate the children about this then. Since you want to hone in on how America's racist and systemic racism exists and trying to beat this in the heads of peoples, why not teach this?
When you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party comes to mind? The Republicans or the Democrats? Most people would probably say the Democrats, but this answer is incorrect. Since its founding in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every major civil rights initiative and has a long history of discrimination.
So why not teach that, Marc Lamont? Why not teach about the party and the platform that you support, right? That you guys support, when call yourself liberals, which is ironic and paradoxical, because the real liberals, the people that were actually abolitionists, were not Democrats in times past, right? Why not teach the history of how the Democrat Party fought against every piece of legislation that was going to, you know, pretty much help the newly freed population, i.e. my ancestors, many of the people that are watching? Why not? Why not teach that? Why not push that? Let's not get vague with this information. Let's get specific.
The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, and fought against the civil.
You see all that? The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, founded the Ku Klux Klan, imposed segregation, perpetrated lynchings, fought civil rights acts. It's over 100 years of the Democratic Party, well over 100 years of the Democratic Party being racist, being white supremacist, and oppressing what you call black people. So if we're going to teach anything in school, how about we teach this? No, you wouldn't do that because that wouldn't work in the favor of your political interest, now would it? Y'all want to make a big cry about CRT needs to be taught in school. CRT needs to be taught in school, critical race theory. How about you start with this? How the Democratic Party played a role in all of this. The KKK played a role in defending slavery, and that's why the Civil War was fought, to try to retain the slaves. That party was to keep slavery going, and the Republicans were trying to end slavery. That's why they were formed. How about you teach that part of history? No, because that would contradict the narrative, right?
Civil Rights Acts of the 1950s and 1960s. In contrast, the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party.
Why not teach that? Why not teach that history? Y'all so big on CRT right now. Oh, we got to teach CRT. Why not teach the American youth how the Republican Party was formed and it was anti-slavery, abolitionist movement? Why not teach that? And teach the truth about the Democrat Party and how they were pro-slavery. Right?
Its mission was to stop the spread of slavery into the new Western territories with the aim of abolishing it entirely. This effort, however, was dealt a major blow by the Supreme Court in the 1857 case Dred Scott versus Sanford. The court ruled that slaves aren't citizens.
And who are these people in the Dred Scott versus Sanford? All you Hebrew Israelites know about Dred Scott. You Moors know about Dred Scott. You quote Dred Scott. But you never bring up the party affiliation. These were Democrats who did this and deemed that these people were not citizens. How about we teach that to our children? Let's teach that to the American youth. How about that? You want to take my money as a taxpayer and force something down the throats of our children? How about that? Huh, Mr. Marc Lamont?
Their property. The 7 justices who voted in favor of slavery, all Democrats. The 2 justices who dissented, both Republicans. The slavery question was, of course, ultimately resolved by a bloody civil war. The commanding...
And this is the danger of, this over-racialized thinking or racial typological thinking, as Ibrahim Mutahar puts it in his book. What I learned today was about racial essentialism, which goes into this as well. We don't teach history from the nuanced viewpoint. We teach it from, all white people against all black people. And that's not the case, as we're seeing today in this video from PragerU, that you had white people fighting to abolish slavery. You had other white people, quote unquote, that were Democrats that were pro-slavery, and they felt that Dred Scott was not a citizen. He was a slave, and all slaves were not citizens.
In chief during that war was the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, the man who freed the slaves. 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated President Lincoln. Lincoln's vice president, a Democrat named Andrew Johnson, assumed the presidency. But Johnson adamantly opposed Lincoln's plan to integrate the newly freed slaves into the South.
So what you're going to keep seeing is that it's Democrats thwarting or the people that stymied the progress of black people even after we were freed. After our ancestors were freed, you had Democrats that were coming in, like Johnson here, doing everything they can to, pretty much keep us an oppressed peoples. And later on, what will happen after Reconstruction, the Black Code, Jim Crow, those are all Democrats. Ku Klux Klan Democrats. Teach that in your schools.
Economic and social order. Johnson and the Democratic Party were unified in their opposition to the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment, which gave blacks citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which gave blacks the vote. All three passed only because of universal Republican support.
So let me go back to that part right there. 13th Amendment abolished slavery. 14th Amendment gave citizenship for blacks. See, Democrats were against this. Hence the Dred Scott case, right? 15th Amendment, voting rights for blacks. And it's so paradoxical that in today's world that we live in now, everyone's calling the Republican platform racist. Sure, there may be racists within the Republican platform. You can argue that all day. But the party that's responsible for giving you the right to vote, freeing your ancestors, and giving you citizenship will always and forever be the Republican platform, not the Democrat platform. The Democratic platform did nothing but hurt and oppress and repress our ancestors. That's the history of the Democratic Party. Let's teach that in schools. How about you push that, Mark? Push that in schools. Make that part of the curriculum.
Republican support. During the era of Reconstruction, federal troops stationed in the South helped secure rights for the newly freed slaves. Hundreds of black men were elected to Southern state legislatures as Republicans, and 22 black Republicans served in the U.S. Congress by 1900. The Democrats did not elect a black man to Congress until 1935. But after Reconstruction ended, when the federal troops went home, Democrats roared back into power in the South. They quickly reestablished white supremacy across the region.
Wait a minute. So Democrats reestablished white supremacy across the region in the South? Because now that word white supremacy has become a buzzword and has been used to get certain peoples in their feelings, right? Identity politics. And it's being used by the Democratic platform. But wait a minute. You come from a platform that has a long history of oppressing, killing, and destroying Black Americans. You come from a platform that reestablished white supremacy through force, through white militia and Ku Klux Klans. You have that history. Teach that, Mark. The party you support and love is the party of white supremacy, is the party of pro-slavery, is the party of Jim Crow, the party of the black codes. That's the party of the Democrats. Teach that.
With measures like black codes, laws that restricted the ability of blacks to own property and run businesses, and they imposed poll taxes and literacy tests used to subvert black citizens' right to vote. And how was all of this enforced? By terror, much of it instigated by the Ku Klux Klan, founded by a Democrat, Nathan Bedford Forrest. As historian Eric Foner, himself a Democrat, notes, in effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party. President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, shared many views with the Klan. He resegregated many federal agencies and even screened the first movie ever played at the White House, the racist film, The Birth of a Nation, originally entitled The Klansman. A few decades later, the only serious congressional opposition to the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964 came from Democrats. 80% of Republicans in Congress supported the bill, less than 70% of Democrats did. Democratic senators filibustered the bill for 75 days until Republicans mustered the few extra votes needed to break the logjam. And when all of their efforts to enslave blacks, keep them enslaved, and then keep them from voting had failed, the Democrats came up with a new strategy. If black people are going to vote, they might as well vote for Democrats, as President Lyndon Johnson was purported to have said about the Civil Rights Act. I'll have them niggas voting Democrat for 200 years. So now, the Democratic Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much of its history oppressing. Democrats falsely claim that the Republican Party is the villain, when in reality, it's the failed policies of the Democratic Party that have kept blacks down. Massive government welfare has decimated the black family. Opposition to school choice has kept them trapped in failing schools. Politically correct policing has left black neighborhoods defenseless against violent crime. So when you think about racial equality and civil rights, which political party should come to mind? I'm Carol Swain, professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University for Prager University. Thanks for watching. To keep our videos free, click here.
It's just that simple, right? And I just wanted to throw that out there as a primer before we get into Marc Lamont's discussion with brother Christopher Rufo. And Christopher Rufo pretty much handled him on the CRT conversation. So we're going to get into that next. But I just want you guys, the viewing audience, to think about what was stated there, what the Democrat Party that Marc Lamont supports. You know, a lot of these accusations of racism and the evil party is the Republican Party. Fine. You want to say that? But we have something called concrete evidence on the Democrat Party, that the Democrat Party has a long history of, you know, pretty much racism and white supremacy and, you know, the oppression and repression of black people in America. And that's funny. The platform that claims to be pushing for reparations is the platform that owes reparations. The Democrat Party should pay all the reparations, because you guys are the ones, you are the guys that thwarted the success and stymied the success of black Americans by, you know, imposing so many things like the Ku Klux Klan, the militia, the laws, black codes that was, you know, pretty much crippling our economy, keeping us from owning homes. Like all of these negative tropes, all of these negative facets of history goes back to the Democratic Party and the Democratic South at that time. A lot of the stuff y'all complain about, oh, they used to do this, they used to do that. Oh, they used to spit on. These were Democrats who did that to your ancestors. So I just want that to be known, all right? Because Marc Lamont would never say these things, you know, because, again, it goes against his political interests. So let's play the first video of Marc Lamont as he debates brother Christopher Rufo.
Welcome back to Black News Tonight. The attack against teaching critical race theory in schools continues with full force. Over the weekend in Texas, the state Senate passed a bill to ban the theory, joining nearly a dozen other states who have already banned it or are well on their way to signing it into law. There is one person who is the proverbial engine behind these efforts. His name is Christopher Rufo. He is the man who is the primary advocate calling for the removal of the theory from schools and other governmental institutions. Last night, he tweeted, and I quote, "In less than a year, my work inspired a presidential order, legislation in the largest red states, and bills in the House and Senate. We have flipped school boards and protected millions from state-sanctioned racism." And yesterday he also tweeted, and I quote, "I learned about racism, slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, and the Trail of Tears in my K-12 education. I never learned about the Holodomor Cultural Revolution and 100 million dead from global communism. Americans haven't whitewashed history, they've redwashed it." So I wanted to discuss this in detail, not with someone like Vernon Jones was here a few weeks ago, who had no idea what critical race theory was, much less being able to sort of articulate a coherent thought about it. Instead, I wanted someone who has thought about this a great deal, worked very hard on his particular project to advance his work, and he generously accepted my offer to come on Black News Tonight. So joining me now is Christopher Rufo. He's a senior fellow at Manhattan Institute. Christopher, thank you so much for joining me. One of the things that you tweeted was this idea of critical race theory being state-sanctioned racism. What makes it that?
Yeah, I think it's an accurate description because critical race theory, as it's practiced in institutions, as it's adopted in places like public schools, engages in practices that can only be described by any rational person as a form of state-sanctioned racism. In San Diego, they told teachers, quote, "You are racist, you are upholding racist ideas simply because of the color of their skin." In Cupertino, California, for example, they separated third graders. These are 8 and 9-year-olds. They forced them to deconstruct their racial and sexual identities and then separated them into people who had power and privilege and people who did not. And finally, a place like even Spring.
I have to point out what did he just say that happened in the classroom was racist, right? And you people have power, and these people are the oppressed peoples. And the reason why I have to pause the video here is because Marc Lamont acts as if no one came on his channel and gave a clear example of what they were complaining about. And he just gave a clear example that, hey, there are situations in classes where people are being separated and being told that you're an oppressed and you are an oppressor. Clear example. I don't know why this is being taught in class. And again, I don't know why a Democrat would even have the audacity even to bring this up, because the Democrats were the oppressors back in times past. You want to make it a white and black thing? Well, let's talk about the political party that you supported. And that's why I want to open that video with PragerU to give you guys the historical background of the Democrat Party that a lot of black people support. You support a historically racist white supremacist party. It's just that simple.
Springfield, Missouri, not exactly a blue city or a blue state. They told white male Christian teachers that by their inborn characteristics, they were inherently oppressors and had to atone for their covert white supremacy. Again, not judging people on their behavior, their character, their actions, their beliefs, just judging them on inborn characteristics, particularly race.
And that's what we fight against here on the channel. And Marc Lamont's not going to even speak towards what he just talked about, what Rufo just talked about. But they bring up this term, racial essentialism. So I looked it up and I learned, I learned the term via these videos, right? So let me go to what racial essentialism is real quick. Racial essentialism is the literature commonly defines racial essentialism as a belief in a genetic or biological essence that defines all members of a racial category. So this is basically like stereotypes, like, all black people eat this, all white people do this. These things are not true. We know that these things boil down to individual things. Like people say all black people can dance. That's not true. All black people can play basketball. That's not true. And these are just simple examples of this. All black people are criminals. That's not true. You understand? So that's basically what racial essentialism is. And, Lamont saying, they're not they're against racial essentialism, as you're going to see in the video. But actually, they do support that when you say, okay, there's an essence behind you guys that makes you this oppressor. And there's an essence behind the black people that makes them the victim, right? And I think this point, Marc Lamont keeps talking around. Watch this. Let's continue watching this clip here.
Okay, so there's two things you said there that I find incredibly interesting. Let me start with the easier part, right? And that is, you say critical race theory as it is practiced. Do I take that to mean that you don't have a problem with critical race theory as it was designed by critical race theorists, as scholars discuss it, but you're saying that in practice there's some gap between how it's conceived and how it's executed?
Yeah, I think actually both are extremely problematic. On a theoretical level, I think critical race theory is an intellectually bankrupt theory, but in itself, it's harmless. Ideas in theory and the abstract are not necessarily harmful. I would support schools, for example, teaching critical race theory as one of many theories and then offering a critique. But what we're seeing that in practice, critical race theory across a wide range of institutions, including the federal government, including public schools, actually, when it's actually implemented, Teachers are engaging in practices that can only be described as, again, a form of state-sanctioned racism, promoting the ideas of race essentialism, that you can reduce people to their racial essence, the ideas of collective guilt, that if someone has a similar characteristics as someone who committed a historical crime, that person should be held accountable and guilty for it. And finally, in some places, they're actually reviving racial segregation. A place like King County, Washington's public libraries now separates some training sessions.
Look at all those examples he gave. And Marc Lamont's going to act like he didn't hear anything. This is called special pleading, right? When a person ignores aspects of an argument that contradict their own. That's what Marc Lamont is essentially doing here.
For employees, with one door and one room for people of color, one door and one room for white employees. And it's really simple. All forms of racism are wrong. It doesn't matter if they're coming from.
And you know what's funny about this? It's the Democrat Party that's pushing these notions, right? That are doing these things, right? And that, that's leading to, these little micro segregations and whatnot. That's based off black and white skin, and black people go over here, white people go over there. But guess who? You know what's funny? Because the people that initially did that were Democrats. The Jim Crow laws, the segregation laws, separate but equal laws, and all those things came from Democrats. So they're just rebranding what they've already done. In my opinion, it's hilarious.
The Klan or practitioners of CRT, I oppose all of it.
Right. So there's kind of a circular logic there, though, right? If you're saying CRT is racist because they do things that are racist and you oppose racism, I think where we have to sort of unpack this a little bit is, one, the premise that pointing out racism or saying that people, by virtue of their whiteness, are responsible or accountable for the power and privilege that they hold. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced, or you have yet, to me, based on the reading that I've done of your work and the speeches that you've given, made a compelling argument for how pointing out power and privilege within the context of a society is itself an act of racism. And just to be clear, the argument of critical race theory isn't that by virtue of some biological determinism, that is to say, it's not because you come out of the womb with white skin that you are racist. It's to say that we live in a society that grants differential power and status to people based on how they are racialized. And by virtue of that, there is a racial dynamic and there is a racial inequality that's produced. And so telling white people that, yeah, in a white supremacist world, whiteness has power, whiteness has the ability to control.
Which white supremacy and all those ideologies was supported by the Democrats, Mark, all of those things you're talking about was supported and enforced by Democrats of the past. So how about you start with that? Nope, because that's the platform you support. And then you say, oh, it's not racial essentialism. But yes, it is, because what you're trying to do is say everybody that's white has that same the same guilt or the same whatever, right? Trying to put them all under the same category. So some white person that lives in fucking Albania has something to do with the American racism. That's BS. And that's not miseducation. That's disinformation. Especially coming from a person that supports a party with a long history of mistreating black people. With laws. You did it with laws, with the black codes and the Jim Crow laws. You did it with brute force, with the Ku Klux Klan and the white militias. Right? So you made sure that the party that you support made sure that a lot of black Americans will be crippled economically and physically. That's the party you support, Mark. And you have the audacity to bring up, oh, CRT needs to be taught. Okay, how about you teach, or how about you advocate the teaching of the origin of the Democrat Party and the acts of the Democrat Party and how they said that black people should continue to be slaves. They fought to continue slavery. And after the slaves were emancipated, They create the Ku Klux Klan. They create white militias, and they terrorize black people. Mister, I want to teach racism. I want the states to fund this CRT propaganda. How about you start with your party? How about you talk about places that are 100% ran by Democrats or majority ran by Democrats? Black people fare the worse. Detroit, Los Angeles, New York, all the major cities that's blue. Black people fare the worse through liberal policy and Democrat policies. People have been decimated. How about you talk about that, Mr. CRT?
Whiteness has the ability to be viewed or constructed as more beautiful, more smart, more sane, more rational. That, to me, I'm not convinced that you've made the case that that is an act of racism in and of itself. Could you help me understand that more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of whiteness, you could say that in your view, it accords different powers and privileges and manifests in certain social inequalities. That's totally fine. People can teach that. People can debate that. I don't think that inherently it's racist. But I think that what we've seen through my reporting and through practices in a wide range of institutions is that once these ideas escape from academia, where, again, I think on the merits they're wrong, but not inherently harmful to individuals, but when they're actually put into practice, it does devolve into racism. And I think that even categorizing it is kind of this new world of whiteness and blackness, by its very language, you're reducing people to what I think is a racial essence. And 100 years ago, they had this idea that you could be reduced to a racial essence and then judged according to it. And I think in many ways, critical race theorists are very vague with their language, but in many ways, they're doing the same thing. They're basically saying if you are a white male, you can be reduced to a set of characteristics such as hard work, rationality, individualism, promotion of private property, that are inherently, by virtue of your birth, make you.
You see how that's racist? Oh, white people automatically are hardworking. They're already pre-wired or pre-packaged to succeed. But your black ass, no, bro, you are destined to fail. That's basically what these Democrats are saying. I just think what's happening here is that these racist liberals, right? Because liberals are some of the most racist people on the planet. They're just remixing and repackaging old ideology that they had in the 1900s, early 1900s, and prior to that. They're just remixing it. They're just reminding you, hey, that we still support white supremacy. Because they can talk all this CRT and racist this and racist that, but you guys support racism every day. In your cities that's ran by Democrats, black people are doing terribly. They're doing terrible, in the school systems. In your cities, under your watch, under your policy, black people are being disproportionately arrested and incriminated in your cities. You have failed black people. And many could say that it's not by accident. It looks like it's designed because of the policies that you have created has pretty much fostered this dysfunctional community that we call the black community in the urban areas. Many can argue that the welfare state and so many other factors that you support, canceling of trying to fight against school choice and keep our people locked into these failing public schools. So many things we can bring up at Democrats today support that decimate us. Abortion has completely decimated us. There's not one thing, black on black crime doesn't measure up to it. Heart attacks don't measure up to it. There have been more black deaths through abortion than anything else. well, these women are loose. Well, you taught them to be loose. You taught them the sexual liberal society, movement, sexual liberal movement, the feminist movement, all taught them to be loose, have sex in the city, have as much sex as you want. Now they're doing these things. They're doing exactly what you guys advocated for, right? And now we're reaping the benefits from it. Or should I say consequences of it? Try to throw a Band-Aid on the problem, just have an abortion. Okay, now we're racking up abortions. We're just killing our children. All Democratic policies, by the way. You're against the nuclear family, which, if you look at the Black community, most of our children are raised in single-parent homes. Most. So teaching against the nuclear family is anti-Black or pro-Black. You guys let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Because before this era, we were stronger and we had a two-parent home structure. Now we don't. And that's coming from these feminists, these liberals that are pushing against it. Meanwhile, they grew up in a two-parent home. While your single ass that's raising those children by yourself is voting for them. Meanwhile, they come from a two-parent home. They live in a better community than yours. And they reap the benefits of your suffering. That's the Democratic Party. And they want to keep you like you were when you were a slave. Dependent on them, dependent on the government. Food, clothing, and shelter. The slave was dependent on the slave master for food, clothing, and shelter. There was no such thing as upward mobility with slaves, economic freedom, none of that. And they've done a great job. The Democrats have done a great job with keeping us in that position. We largely vote Democrat, and most of us live in completely ran Democratic cities. Okay? And that's just the facts of the matter. Black people have gotten nowhere voting Democrat at all. You're still complaining about the same issues under this Democratic regime. So, Mr. Marc Lamont, can you explain to me how African Americans have been supporting this group, this political party, for the better part of 60, 70, 80 years? And we're still complaining about the same shit, inequality, housing. We're complaining about that no upward mobility. We're complaining about our schooling. What the hell's going on, man? You leaving out pieces of the puzzle to distort the image. That's the history of the Democrat Party and our relationship with the Democrat Party. We have suffered under them. And all these projects are just slave breeding farms. Because, you taught our women to be sexually free, sexually loose, right? You don't need a man, these different concepts that come from the feminists. And now you tell them they're not even women. Ain't that some shit? The Democratic Party, there's advocates of the Democratic Party that are telling biological women, they not women, that they baby carriers, and trans women, you're real women. That's the party that you support, Lamont. You create this weird oxymoronic thing with the trans community in sports, and now you got women competing with men and men crushing women's skulls. That's the party you support. Stop it. I know it's niggas in the comments right now. Oh, the Republican Party, this is the Republican Party, that. Say whatever you want to say about the Republican Party. Continue to support the Democrat Party. Continue to support it. you're going to be in a worse situation 10 years from now supporting them. The record shows it. The record reflects it. What have you got under the Democrats' rule? Projects, baby mama drama, baby mama, baby daddy drama. You understand? Victimhood. You understand? High ass rent in a city you can't afford to live in. Low job prospects. Because, you know, these people believe in shipping jobs across seas. They believe in that. They staunch believers in that. They're against small business. So all you black people talk about, so we should become entrepreneurs. A lot of these people produce and pass laws that are anti-small business. I'm done ranting. Let me get back to the video, man. This guy's full of sugar honey iced tea.
You an oppressor. And then they put you into their overall framework of critical race theory, which divides society into that old Marxist dialectic of oppressor and oppressed, but replacing those economic categories with these racial categories. And I think that's wrong. I don't think it should be promoted in schools. And I think that states are very wise to put restrictions on any form of racism, any form of treating people differently based on the color of their skin, and promoting any kind of fringe theory that would advocate that one race is superior.
D-Red, you said some dumb shit right here. You said 10 of the poorest states are Republican-ran states, though, so it's kind of a wash. This makes no fucking sense to what I just said. What I said was black people fare the worse in Republican-ran cities. That's a fact. Black people do worse in Republican-ran cities like Boston, Massachusetts, New York, Detroit, Michigan, Los Angeles, California, Dallas, Texas. Do your Googles, nigga. Study it. Matter of fact, before we finish this video, let me just go into the article. Because you know how I do. I source up. Right. And this is why, and majority of we're talking about education, politics, and anything of that nature, it's an uphill battle with other black people because black people are against those things. They're against anything that actually will empower us, like education and politics. They're against that. They try to find counterpoints and arguments. And they force you to be an individual. Oh, you're not with the group. You're not. Yes. I said Democrat ran cities and states. Yes. Todd Mike. Watch this. This is an article from the New Republic. Watch this. Let me share my screen. I want y'all to see this. Respond to that dumbass shit that D-Red said. This is the soapbox right here. It says here, Democrats have failed urban black Americans. The Republican critique of misrule in American cities has some merit, and it's not clear that Joe Biden's party is prepared to meet the need. On the first night of, and here's another thing. For these Republicans that's trying to act like they're the heroes of the black community. We're not even reading it, are we? Hold on. Let me switch it over. Hold on. You guys can't even see it. For these Democrats acting as if they are the heroes of the black community and they're the saviors of the black community, even though they're the reason why the black community, they're a large part of the reasons why the black community is in a state of despair. Since y'all care, since the Democrat Party cares about black people so much, why won't they do something about this? Huh? Why not repair a lot of these dilapidated areas? Why not repair the projects? Why not do that? It's because you don't give a damn about black people like that. See, you can't charge Republicans with that because their voter base is not black. By and large, their voter base is not black. And the Trump got the highest in a while, 12%. The voter base for the Democrats is like 90%. And this is what they leave you with. Your vote means shit to them because they don't give you nothing. If anything, they exacerbate your issues, not repair them. Yes, Ramal Yahoo, the worst cities for black people are ran by Democrats. So let's read this article. It says, on the first night of the Republican National Convention on Monday, viewers were treated by a taped speech by Kimberly Klacik, a young black candidate for Maryland's 7th House District, which includes a large share of Baltimore. She won't be among the convention's best remembered appearances, but she did manage to capsulize much of Trump's message for black urban voters in just 2 short minutes. Let me remind you that Democrats have controlled this part of Baltimore City for over 50 years, she said. And they have run this beautiful place right into the ground. Abandoned buildings, liquor stores on every corner, drug addicts, guns on the street. That's now the norm in many neighborhoods. You'd think Maryland's taxpayers would be getting a whole lot since our taxes are out of control. Instead, we're paying for decades of incompetence and corruption. Sadly, the same cycle of decay exists in many of America's Democrat-run cities. And you know what's the best evidence for this? You guys live in these cities and complain about how you're treated in these cities, your economic situation, your housing situation, your job prospects. You argue about your own city. 9 times out of 10, they're ran by Democrats. They're ran by Democrats. But they get on here and try to be this special snowflake and say, no, we're actually the party that's against racism. This is it. We're for you. We support you. You support what? What do you support? If anything, you have done everything in your power to cripple Black Americans since your inception. And I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to stand on that. D-Red, you're a fucking idiot, and you're getting blocked for saying that dumbass shit. Got time for your idiocy, bro. It says right here, the same cycle of decay exists in many of America's Democrat-run cities. We'll get back to that. Let's go back to this clip. Just wanted to bring that out.
Superior or inferior to another?
Obviously, I would dispute first I would dispute that it's a fringe theory if we're saying that it's so mainstream that it's infiltrating every sector of public life. I think we can't simultaneously dismiss it as fringe and then say it's permeating every area of the public sphere. I think you'd concede that point. But you say that there is a kind of essentialism. It says white people are reduced to characteristics and an essential racial identity. What critical race theorist have you read that has ever said that?
Yeah, I mean, I think even look at someone as prominent as Robin DiAngelo. You have someone who says that the question is not if racism has occurred, but how
She's
much
not a critical
and in
race
what way
theorist,
racism
though.
manifests. Yeah, I think it's fair to say she's a critical whiteness studies. A lot of her work draws on and cites critical race theorists such as Cheryl Harris and Derek Bell and others. But I think, there's more than a semantic game. It's really a game of in practice. And, they said that communism was a perfect theory in the abstract, but as it was applied over and over and over, it led to negative outcomes. I think critical race theory, which again is derived from the neo-Marxist ideologies of the 1960s, is really in the same way. When you see all of these horrific stories, for example, like the idea that white babies become racist at 3 months old, which was promoted by the Arizona Department of Education, among other institutions. These are really indefensible, but they run under the guise of critical race theory. And I really think that we should judge critical race theorists not on the beauty of their theories as abstractions, but on the real world consequences of their ideas. I think they divide people on the basis of race. I think they treat people differently on the basis of race. And I think they're antithetical to the values of the First Amendment, which should protect people from compelled speech. the values of the 14th Amendment, which says that we should all be treated equally under the law as individuals. And then, antithetical to the very constitutional system which critical race theorists seek to cast doubt on.
In the interest of time, I'm going to allow you to punt on the critical race theorist point. I know you mentioned Robin DiAngelo, who you said draws from critical race theory, but I would submit that there's no critical race theorist, including the people you named like Derek Bell or Cheryl Harris or Kimberly Crenshaw, who would argue that there's a racial essence. In fact, critical race theory is premised on the idea that race is a social construct. It's actually pushing back against these sort of Enlightenment ideas about people being, about biological determinism. It's saying that we're constructed in the world as people, and the world shapes these identities. That race isn't real in the sense that it's biology. It's a social construct. But let me ask you a more fundamental.
That was a red herring, because that had nothing to do with whether or not race is a biological unit or a social construct. Because he knows it's a social construct. What he's arguing against is how people are utilizing this concept to pretty much cause division, be divisive, and pretty much judge people on their color. Like he said earlier, they literally were teaching that white people were more apt to do certain things. And it's like, no, they're not. Just because by virtue of them being white, that's fucking stupid. And that's basically what he was saying. And that's just some old, and he even brought up, this was taught 100 years ago. They pretty much revamped, repackaged it, and remixed it and called it CRT. My thing is, okay, fine. Y'all want to teach CRT? You want to take my tax dollars from me and make that, applied or whatever? Okay, fine. Okay. If you teach CRT, I want you to teach the history of the Democratic Party as well. Since you're so anti-racism, you should have no problem with bringing out how racist the Democrat Party has been since its inception.
Fundamental question: do you believe that American society right now is easier to navigate as a white person than a black person in terms of access to social goods, education, housing, healthcare, etc.?
Yeah, I directed a film for PBS that looked at 3 of America's poorest cities. I highlighted a white working class neighborhood in Youngstown, a black urban neighborhood in Memphis, Tennessee, and a Latino multiracial neighborhood in Stockton, California. And I think that the key drivers right now of inequality in America are less and less based on race and more based on class. Increasingly, what I saw in America's poorest communities is that people who are vulnerable, people who are marginalized, people who are at the lowest end of the economic ladder, the challenges that are facing all of them. I think the family is a big one. I think merit-based education is a big one. And I think workforce participation is the third big one. Actually, are really the same core set of challenges. Yeah, certainly it expresses itself differently. I would think that as you kind of take apart those different intersections, obviously, the United States has a history of racism. That is an incontrovertible fact. The real question is, what do we do about it? And I think that the critical race theorists offer the wrong solutions. And I think there are better solutions out there.
I got you, but I just want to be sure for clarity's sake. I understand you're saying that class is an increasing factor. And again, while you say that critical race theorists reduce things to a single essential identity, one of the most provocative and interesting and quite frankly utilized pieces of critical race theory is the issue of intersectionality, which talks about not just race, but these other identity categories, these other factors: race, class, gender, geography, religion, etc. And certainly we could bring in this issue of class. And I understand you're saying that class is increasingly important. Let's say I concede that point. I don't, but let's say I concede that point. You're still saying that race continues to matter and that race still continues to be a factor. You're not denying the fact that racism still exists and that you wouldn't. I'll give you a concrete example. Studies show that black students are more likely to be suspended, less likely to graduate, more likely to receive a harsher punishment in school than their white counterparts for the same infractions. When you control for class.
And I agree with what Marc Lamont is saying. There are studies that say that and swing that way, right? But here's my thing. If you believe those things and if you look into that, where are most of these people concentrated at? What cities are they under? Are they not under Democrat leadership and tutelage? So if they are, then you have to question those people that are Democrats and get on their ass. You're so busy, conservative. But the people that have the most power in their jurisdiction over the people that you're complaining about is normally Democrat, which makes this whole thing paradoxical.
Yes, race still shows to be a determining factor when you look at elite independent schools, where everyone is of the same sort, or if you control for class again, race still continues to be a factor. How do you make sense of this without invoking race or racism?
Well, I mean, I think that in that particular example, you're not really identifying a causal variable. That's a really complex question that has a lot of answers. And the problem with critical race theory is that it is reductionist at its core. It basically says that any disparities on the basis of race must necessarily, even without evidence, be caused by racism and racist institutions. I'm not sure that's true. I think you could look at other data, for example, that shows different study habits among members of different racial groups. And with Asian Americans spending more time studying and putting more effort towards their studies than any other racial group, consequently, maybe causally, they show the highest rates of college admissions and SAT scores. So these are hard questions. And does race play a part? Absolutely. I think that's obvious to anyone that looks at the issue. But is racism the decisive part? Maybe not. Is racism a component part? What other factors are at play? Again, I think family, education, workforce participation, these are really the three big variables that people.
You see these three things: family, education, and workforce participation. Those three things will play a key role in, whether or not you're successful or not. And that's all he's saying. He's not denying that racism exists. He's not denying that there are people that are racist, there are institutions that are racist. He never denied that. But Mark wants to, play the victim role and say we're all racist, everyone's racist, and we're all oppressed, and all this other bullshit. But those three things matter, and that's why we try to push that workforce participation. But a lot of people that are liberal will tell black people don't get a job. Oh, you just want a slave master. Don't work. Don't do anything. That's like, that is so crazy, because those three things that he named, if we achieve those, you're successful. Family. A lot of our people practice ideologies that are against families. A lot of our men just want to have a bunch of sex. They would have turned a lot of our women into whores and slut them out. Well, that's not conducive for family. Oh, well, white people do it too. Why is that always the go-to? Like, they have established families. We don't. Education. We try to push education on the channel. Hey, brothers should seek higher learning. It's higher education. Why? Because if you get certain degrees, you will obtain a higher payout, right? We push those concepts on our channel. We want our people to, get these jobs in STEM and other fields, right, that have high payouts. So you're not worried about struggling. You're not living paycheck to paycheck, essentially. You're able to take care of your kids. You're able to take care of a family. So those three things are huge. And we're not teaching our youth those three things. We're teaching our youth other frivolous things that don't matter. And I think that's where the argument lies. Oh, CRT this, CRT that. But really, the three things that really matter, our children are being neglected. And all those things Lamont brought up about the punishment of the children is more likely for blacks than whites, and education and poor education, all those things, you can blame Democrats. I can point fingers back on Democrats on that. Again, the party that's beholden to black people should be Democrats. 80 to 90% of your votes go towards them. Most of the cities that we live in are ran by Democrats. Why is he not holding Democrats' feet to the fire? I don't know. Maybe because he's getting a nice little check. I don't know. But what Rufo is saying is killing everything, Lamont is saying. Because it's true. Those three things matter. Without those three things, you cannot be successful. Family, education, job participation. And in our community, those things are pretty much frowned upon. You got a job, nigga. You work for a slave master. Da da da. Oh, education. No, man, I'm not into that. Everybody not into that. Family, no, man. You got this new thing where people tell I don't believe in labels. You don't even want to call a woman your girlfriend no more. The family building aspect is completely gone. It's completely eviscerated from the black community. You know what I'm saying? So Christopher Rufo was on point. When you see people that have, like the Asian community that have those three things, they're successful. That's it. Plug those three things in. We can repair those things. We cry and say, I grew up with this, my mama. My mama had to struggle. You know what would solve that? A strong family unit, having a mother and a father. That would solve that. If us as a community believe in those ideals and practice them. But we don't. We find excuses to do otherwise. Oh no, man, I gotta go out here and get it. I gotta fuck as many hoes as I can. Then you 30, 40, 50 years old with a bunch of random kids you don't even take care of. And the community is in shambles. This is why a lot of people say we need to do this. We need to do that. No. It's not a we problem with the black community. It's an individual problem. We have to start on the individual level. Those three things need to be mastered on the individual level. Then we should coalesce. Then it'll be better. But it won't get better because we got too many people fighting for the other side that's saying, no, don't get a job. No, don't further your education. And no, don't start a family. And those are the three things that you need to have a successful community. Marc Lamont died on this point, man.
People of all racial backgrounds, including Black Americans, should really be looking at for policy solutions, trying to figure out how can we get people that are at the bottom of the ladder moving up, expressing their potential, and then participating to the best of their ability.
Chris, I'd love to keep you a little bit longer. Can I go to break and bring you back and we keep this conversation going just a little bit longer?
Sure.
Cool, man. Everybody stay with us. We're going to come back. We're going to bring Christopher back so that we can have an extended conversation on critical race theory. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. I'm here with Christopher Rufo. We're talking about critical race theory. And Christopher, maybe we'll call it just News Tonight while you're on, so we don't have to talk about race too much. You talk about what's happening in schools. What do you see as troublesome of letting students know early on that race is an issue, that America has a foundation of racial inequality? Well, let me not be presumptuous. I think I've understood this from your writing, but for example, telling students that slavery is central to how America was built, that the founding fathers were slave holders, telling them that settler colonialism was a big part of the American formation. Would you see those things as problematic?
Well, I mean, I think you and I would probably have different terminology, but I think that American schools have an obligation to teach the facts of history. Slavery is a fact of history. Segregation is a fact of history. All those things should be taught. All those things should be in the curriculum of public schools. But teaching history, teaching context, teaching competing viewpoints is good. But what is not good is taking an ideology like critical race theory, turning it into official dogma, and then compelling students to believe in ideas like, again, race essentialism, like racial superiority theory, like there's value in segregating people in 2021. These patterns and practices of critical race theory are totally separate from teaching about history, teaching about injustice, teaching about racism. Again, I'm totally fine with the former. I think that is really important. But I don't think that public schools should be compelling students to believe in these theories. I think that legislatures have a right and a duty and an obligation to set limits on government speech, to set restrictions on what teachers can promote as official state policy.
Yeah, I think we agree that racial essentialism and racial superiority shouldn't be taught in schools. I think my pushback is twofold. One, critical race theory does not advocate race.
This is a bold-faced lie, because earlier this brother Rufo gave examples of people in practice of CRT, right? Saying that, hey, separating the kids in the classroom, saying the white kids are the oppressors, the white kids are the more apt to be timely, more apt to be successful, and the black kids are the oppressed, the victims. Like, bro, that's racial essentialism. Like, you can't get around that. That's exactly what it is. It's not based off of who these people are, where they come from. It's based off of, well, genetically or biological essence that defines all members of a racial category. I'm just reading it off of that. When we know in the real world, that's not how things work. Now, does it? In the real world, these things, like you brought up earlier, are social. But it's like you keep going back to, well, these people, all these people, and he's going to say something that's contradictory at the end. I'm just going to let it play because I want to get to that point that's going to even speak louder.
Racial superiority, nor does it advocate racial essentialism. Its fundamental belief, its fundamental argument is that race is about the construction of race, and that race is a social construct, not that there is some essential narrative that binds all people of the same racial sort. Although it's interesting, earlier,
if that is the argument, and that's what's being taught, then you wouldn't be dividing up the students based on their skin color now, would you, dumb?
when you're talking about sort of how Asians have study habits, that's its own kind of racial essentialism that actually also is contradicted by data, right? When you disaggregate it, Hmong students, Cambodian students have very different outcomes than, say, Japanese or Chinese or Korean students, but we tend to lump them all as all being Asian. That is far more of a racial essentialist argument, I would say, than critical race theory would argue. But I think there is an interesting point here where you begin to think about and talk about how schools have an obligation to teach history that's true, to offer competing viewpoints. I think we agree there. I think the idea that we shouldn't teach racial superiority, I think we agree there. But what does it mean to point out that racism actually exists? What does it mean to talk about whiteness as an idea? You would agree that whiteness is an actual thing, right? That there are things that you get in society simply by virtue of being white. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah, no, I think the idea of whiteness, I mean, isn't
that racial essentialism again? Oh, just because you're white, you get these things. I'm confused.
It's a pejorative label, right? That is a stand-in for all sorts of negative terminologies. So the idea that is being taught in public schools today in places like Seattle and Portland is that if you are a white student, you have internalized whiteness. That is equivalent with being an unconscious white supremacist. That's equivalent of being a racial oppressor, and that you have to go through a stage of, quote, white identity development in order to atone for the sin of being white, in order to purge yourself as much as possible of your whiteness. And these are ideas and practices that are just completely insane. I think applied to any other racial category, it would be wrong. And I think it's wrong applied to white students in schools like Seattle and Portland.
Yeah, that example right there, oh, white people are oppressors and blah, blah, blah. All these things just based on random white people is saying it. And then what are you implying? Oh, these people are naturally, or just the system is made to make them superior and the system is made to make black people inferior. This is victimhood and a black inferiority complex all over again. That's all this is teaching. And again, putting CRT into schools is not going to increase the literacy rate amongst young black males and young black children. It's not going to increase the situations in our schools. You're just adding more bullshit filler to the school. And like I said, if you want to teach anything about racism, let's teach the history of racism, the origin of the Democrat Party. Let's put that on the curriculum as well, since we're so concerned about racism, Lamont. But again, like all of this is fluff. Who cares? If you teach this, is this going to touch on any of those problems that many of our people suffer under the under the auspice of the Democrat Party? Come on, man.
That's fair. And forgive me, I wasn't interrupting you. There was a little pause there. So let me ask you a quick question first. Do you identify as white?
I mean, I'm an Italian American, so you tell me. I think, like, you know, my father, who's an Italian immigrant, would be very confused. He'd say, what do I have in common with a Swedish person or an English person or a German person? We're totally different. We have different cultures, different languages, different customs. You know, I think that lumping people into white, black, Asian, as you suggested, is such a crude and broad categorization. I think we'd be a lot better off trying to drill down into specifics and not trying to pit racial groups against one another in the political battle.
And I agree with him. Be specific. And when we look at things from, you know, that standpoint, I see the Democrat Party doing nothing but destroying the black community, doing nothing but, you know, has stymied the black community by using identity politics, by pretty much giving them a bunch of empty promises and not fixing the situation they created, the school system, like getting rid of school choice in a lot of states, like in a lot of cities, and trying to push CRT when they should be pushing and funding tutors and funding extra help for these poor, impoverished black people that you keep claiming that you care about so much, that live in these inner urban cities that are suffering. Why not do anything? How about, you know, funding, you know, things that can help build families? How about teaching them things about family and the nuclear family in the grade level? Since we want to talk about anything, we could teach them how to be, we could teach them about homosexual sex as kindergartens now. This shit is so crazy, but we can't teach them about family, nuclear families, and what that takes, what that entails. You know, what economic mobility is. How about increasing the literacy rate? How about doing those things in school? You want our kids to learn everything but read, math, and arithmetic, as they used to say back in the day. This is the crazy thing about it. Right, Todd, Mike. He says he's saying the same thing Dr. Claude Anderson and ADOS has been saying. We need specificity in policy and everything else. Exactly. We're worried about, oh, white this, white that, black this, black that. No, we need to get specific on these things. That's how we can tackle these problems and these issues. While we're being specific, a lot of these black people are suffering these issues in these Democratic ran cities. It's just that simple.
Battlefield.
So again, I understand that you're Italian, and I understand that there are people who are Swedish, and you say, what do you have in common with a Swede or with, say, a Polish person or whatever? That thing, my answer to you, that thing would be whiteness. And as you've read critical race theory, I'm sure you've read the work of Ignatieff and others who talk about the way that ethnic groups like.
And this is what he was talking about, devolving into racial essentialism all over again. It's the same thing. Whiteness. Oh, you can't be an individual. And this is why we tell people, when y'all say all black people are the same, this is what you're doing.
Italians come here, they're hated, first generation in particular, right? You don't speak the language. Italians were seen as bad at school, untrustworthy, all these vicious slurs around Italians, or the Irish, for example, right? When we read the work of Roediger and others, right? And then there's a moment after second generation where you get lumped into this thing called whiteness. When you're driving down the street and a police officer sees you or they see me, that your ethnicity isn't the point, your race is. When they police see me, they don't care whether I'm from Jamaica or Haiti or whether I'm a descendant of slaves. They just see blackness. The American Racial Project is what puts you in the same boat as.
And see, there's another racialist sense of, when police see you, they just see blackness. You're trying to blanket the whole police force. Like, this is a liberal tactic. I got pulled over recently. I wasn't racially profiled or nothing. I got a warning and got let go. So it's like, trying to blanket everybody. Does racism happen and exist in the police force? Yes, it does. But to try to use that or use these examples to say all police or if police see me, this is what's going to happen. They're going to treat me like this. They're going to call me a nigger. It's this type of identity politics that is just disgusting. And it's like, well, we live in a time where majority of our people are going to fall for this bullshit because, again, it's a sweet song. I think the Bible talks about that sweet song in the ear. And it's just not the truth. Like, the truth is this. And what Rufo said was right. If we want to be successful, we have to support these three things: family, education, and job participation. Those three things. Crying about CRT and trying to make it seem like, oh, these are the oppressors, we are the oppressed. It's not going to do anything but keep us stagnated. And that's what's been happening. We've been doing those things. Jesse Jackson, we've been doing those things. It has done nothing for our communities, has done nothing for our familiar structure, has done nothing for education of our people. It has done nothing. It's a waste of time and it's fluff. And if anything, counterproductive. And I could see why the Democrats are pushing it now, because get us focused more on this than the things that matter, and we'll continue to fall. That's all I see it as. A mechanism used to keep us entrapped. And it's working. The Democrats, all of their policies and plans are working to keep Black people permanent underclass. Great job, Mark. Great job.
As a Russian or a Polish person, because you all are white, and whiteness becomes this thing that is a marker of power. I mean, if I were to say to you what you like about being Italian, you could name lots of customs. You could name lots of things, and you can deny being white, right? But that's what whiteness studies is about. It's about outing your whiteness. You can say you're not white. You can pretend you're not white. I'm not saying you're doing that, but the world still treats you as white. And if I were to say to you right now, Christopher, what do you like about being white?
These questions are non sequitur, and let's say, okay, I deny the whole racial system together, which you claim CRT does, but actually CRT reminds you of the racial system and enforces the racial system, and they try to teach off of it. This is why I said this is ironic and it's paradoxical. I tell people all the time that racial schemas is fake, false. It's a false narrative. If we want to talk about common ancestry, we can talk about common ancestry. But just because you're Black don't mean you're related to each other. Just because you're Black don't mean you're fast, you're strong. It don't mean none of that shit. But what we're seeing is someone is advocating that no, let's teach those things and continue to teach those things and enforce those things. And let me just throw all these non sequitur questions towards you about, oh, well, you can't hide from your whiteness. Like I can't hide from my Blackness. What basically the bandwagon fallacy. People going to call you white, so you white. People going to call you Black because you're Black. No, people can say whatever the hell they want to say about you. That's just the world we live in. That doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's true. Oh, this person right here is no. That's a hard pill to swallow, especially a lot of you liberals. A lot of you liberals are just racist. You closet racist. That's all you are.
What would you say?
I don't know. Again, it's such an amorphous term. It's like a census term or a
but can you do me a favor? Indulge me for one. We're running out of time. Indulge me for a minute. I understand you see it as all these things, but you surely recognize that the world sees you as white. You know the world reads you as white. And if you were to ask me some things I like about being Black, I could talk about cultural norms, I could talk about tradition, I could talk about the kind of commonalities I feel around the diaspora. If I were to ask you what, particularly if you're saying whiteness is a thing that is being constructed as negative and shouldn't be, name something positive that you like about being white.
Well, sure. I'll answer with a thing. There's a lot of documents that are floating around public schools that say things like timeliness, showing up on time, is a white supremacist value or a white dominant value. Things like rationality, things like the Enlightenment, things like objectivity, and these are very strange things to be ascribed.
And that goes to the Black inferiority thing again. Who are these people making up these CRT theories? Because they're saying, oh, white people are pretty much prepackaged with all these things to make them successful. So what are they saying about black people? That we're not? Like, first of all, no one's prepackaged on anything. These things are learned behaviors. So that's black inferiority all over again. Oh, white people are prepackaged. They're telling white people that they're prepackaged with the ability to be timely, to be punctual. What? That's racial essentialism, like he said earlier. Again, these things are taught, these things are learned. No one's prepackaged with any of that. These the same party that's going around saying that black people are too stupid. You know, I'm paraphrasing. They didn't really say black people are too stupid, but they're pretty much, that's what they're implying when they say, "Oh, well, black people are not able to get IDs." Wait, every black person I know has ID. What are you talking about? We all know that was a ploy to, you know, bolster more votes for the illegal immigrants. They want the law to not require ID or voter ID, just so they can get a lot of illegals to vote Democrat. And no one's stupid. We see right past that. But the fact that you use that argument shows you that you really, the way you view black Americans is very low. And why not, Mark, talk about that? It is what it is. Let me answer this comment right here. Ebo's son says, "I'm confused with this channel's core message. Many of us that have DNA prove we are haplogroup E in the South will never receive the funding necessary to repair the black community that contains YAP." There is no, okay, we talk about DNA, but that's not all I talk about. I'm talking about politics right now, because a lot of our people are pretty much duped when it comes to politics, and they think they have a certain narrative that they feed into because, you know, media is dominated by liberals. So the narrative is, oh, the Democrats are here to help us and save us, and the Republicans are racist. And time to time again, I do videos about how racist Democrats are, and like my brother Todd Mike said, soft racism of low expectations. Exactly. Because you view, oh, these people are too dumb to pass what's that test called again in college? I can't even think of it right now. SAT. They're too dumb, so we need to lower the standards. Come on, man. That's obviously they're saying that we're inferior when they do stuff like that. But you know what Ebo's son is saying, the core channel, you know, yes, we deal with a lot of DNA, but I deal with politics, I deal with education, I deal with other topics as well. Trades. We have done shows on trades and why black people should get into school and higher education. We do other videos. He also says many of us that have had DNA prove we are haplogroup E in the South and will never receive the funding necessary to repair the black community that contains YAP. I agree. We won't receive it. The party that is claiming or that's supposed to be for HR 40 or reparations are Democrats, and Democrats are not going to give you a dime. When Biden was asked about reparations, he diverted and started talking about legal immigration and amnesty. That shows you these people do not give a damn. And you know, his VP Kamala Harris says, "I'm not going to do anything specific for black people." So you be waiting till the cows go home if you're looking for, you know, this particular cabinet and these type of Democrats to do anything for you. And then, you know, a lot of people say Republicans are racist, Republicans are this. Okay, so continue to support the party that has failed you for years. You've been supporting for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, and you're still complaining. So that should tell you a lot. That's why I do these videos.
To a racial identity, my view is that these are actually should be ascribed to every individual human being. Every individual human being, regardless of whatever racial category we impose on them, has
Christopher,
the
that doesn't
capability
answer the question, though. You're telling me you're making straw men about things that are ascribed to whiteness that you think are wrongfully ascribed to whiteness. I'm saying if whiteness isn't a negative thing, and there's something that you actually, and that whiteness actually shouldn't be constructed as all negative, name something positive about being, that you believe is positive about being white.
Again, I don't buy into the framework that the world can be reduced into these metaphysical categories of whiteness and blackness. I think that's wrong. I think we should look at people as individuals. I think we should.
That is wrong. And that is the problem. And this is the problem with Democrats. That's the problem with society today. We try to reduce everything to black and white. Oh, this person's black. He must be into this. Oh, this person's white. He must be into that. Kedrick says, why does it have to be CRT? Oh, I get it. It's a theory that will not benefit us at all. Politicians will never promote anything that benefits us as a whole. Just tokenism. Exactly. Thank you, brother. Exactly. Because it's things they could actually be doing that actually help, the literacy rates, get us more in tune with the familiar structure, higher education, and so on and so forth, financial literacy, scientific literacy. There's other things they could be doing to help our children, but nope, they want to teach them about homosexual practices, at a early age, and they want to teach them CRT. All white people are oppressors. Oh, they don't say that. Well, okay, but in practice, they give you examples of that's where it's leading to. And you're inferior. It's like, why would you want to teach children that? Like, it doesn't make any damn sense. Everything but reading, math, and science. Thought that's what we were paying our tax dollars for, so schools could teach those things, but it seems like the emphasis is on other things.
Celebrate different people's accomplishments. And again, I think the idea, you mentioned Ignatieff. Ignatieff says the goal is to, quote, abolish the white race. In any other context, this would be interpreted as a near genocidal slur. I don't buy into it. The reason I'm not going to answer your question is I reject that categorization. I think of myself as an individual human being.
And he doesn't want him to think of himself as an individual human being. He doesn't want him to think of, he wants him to fall into that rubric of, colorism. And, that's what we fight against on this channel when we're talking about DNA, because as we show, we are related to people that could be quote unquote white or black, which kills that whole racial narrative and diatribe that Mark is in support of, which I don't find surprising because he supports a platform that does that has a history of it. All the Republicans are racist. Okay, fine. Let's say what you want to say about Republicans. Does not change the history and the facts that point toward the Democrat Party for all of the things that you guys complain about. Black codes, the Dred Scott decision, Jim Crow laws, the antebellum South, poll taxes, literacy test to vote. You know what I'm saying? Land being stolen from. Like, we could keep going on and on. The placarders list. These were all Democrats that did these terrible things. The Ku Klux Klan. Meanwhile, during this time, you had Republican Calvin Coolidge that said the rights of the Negro is as sacred as any other American. But Woodrow Wilson was just playing Birth of a Nation at the White House and sparked the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. That's why I said, we advocate teaching anything. Let's teach the history of the Democratic Party. If you want to teach the kids something, let's show them what the true colors of the Democratic Party, since we're so anti-racist now. Let's blow the skirt off of the Democrat Party then. Do it to the K-12 level like you're trying to push CRT.
With my own capabilities, and I would hope that we could both judge each other as individuals and come to common values on that basis.
Fair enough. I would argue, though, that the ability to say, I don't see race, I don't recognize or own whiteness is an extraordinarily white thing to be able to do. It's an exercise of power and privilege. You can ignore the
That don't make no damn sense, because I don't even subscribe to any of that shit. I could people say, you black, you can go through this, and I continue to make strides in what I'm doing. Like, that's just fucking dumb what this dude said.
the label of whiteness and still be able to enjoy all the spoils of whiteness. If I say I'm not black, I don't see race, I still can't get the cab. I still work harder for less money. I still don't live as long. I still get longer prison sentences.
That makes no damn sense, because I think you got a network. Marc Lamont is pushing this victimhood shit, but I think you got a network of $1 million or something like that. And then, like, black Americans are like some of the wealthiest black peoples, quote unquote, on the planet, are the wealthiest Africans on the planet. What are you talking about, Mark? You're privileged being an American. Now, there's issues with the community in America. He said Marc Lamont, he'll just be saying some shit sometimes. I still get longer prison sentences. Yes, there has been, disproportionate prison sentences towards Black Americans, and we know who to blame on that. We know who to blame on that. We know what party to blame on that. These recent ones, right? Something that happened in the 90s, right? The crime bill, right? Come on, brother. Stop it.
I'm more likely to be executed if I'm convicted of a crime. I'm still more likely to die of COVID. I'm still more likely to get suspended.
That made no sense. What does more likely dying from COVID have to do with whether or not you're white or black? Or that sounds like because we already have pre-existing conditions like high blood pressure and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with racism, Lamont. That's a health issue. And see, that's what I'm saying. This is the type of shit they do. They just throw a bunch of stuff out there, hope it sticks, and preying on the weak, preying on our people that we're not, research based, right? That we eat up anything emotional, right? We're very emotional people. We want to appeal to emotionalism. That's why rebel rousing works so well with us. And it's just like sad because at the end of the day, the Democrats won the war. They won 90% of our people that vote for them in the national election and in local elections. They vote for Democrats in high numbers. So they won already. I just want to expose it to the few people that are able to perceive the information and see past it. You know what I'm saying? This is the type of nonsensical bullshit that they're pushing CRT. So who cares? How about you create funding and programs to give tutors to Black people that struggle in math or Black children that struggle with reading or struggle with science? How about that? How about you use that money that you're going to force the government to use to teach CRT towards raising some of these teachers' wages so they'll be, be comfortable while teaching your children? And how about giving them a teacher aide? Use some of this extra money to give them a teacher aide so there's not one teacher with a class of 30 students. And they're getting driven crazy every day watching 30 children per class when you can give them a help. And how about we slash those classes in half? How about we use some of this extra money that y'all are using to teach children about homosexual practices and use it to, hire teacher aides? How about that? This is crazy. All right. Oh, man, I went all the way to the back of the video. Hold on. Let me go. Because he's going to end with that.
Or unwillingness, which I respect fully, and I mean that sincerely, to not own whiteness or to not even take on whiteness as part of your identity is something that you can do because you can.
Black people can do that too. We can do that as well. We can say we know we don't fall under this colorist agenda or schema. We can say that. Nothing stopping us to say that. He got a mouth, you got a mouth. You can get on YouTube like he can get on YouTube. You can go on platforms, write blogs like he can write blogs. You can express that like anybody else. Oh, majority. Well, majority's not going to say that. Who cares? You can denounce things just like anybody else. What kind of victim are you? Yeah, man, let's attack some real issues, man. Who gives a damn about this damn CRT shit? I agree with Ramal Yahoo because it fits into that color schema, just like he says. He doesn't just like the brother Rufo or Chris, I can't say his name right, Rufo. He basically says he denounced that way of thinking, the ideology of white and black. Ebo Son says, this is deeper than politics. Look at the Wilmington, North Carolina massacre. Blacks were Republicans and tried to make progress, and it failed. Then became Democrats, and it failed again. It failed while they were Republicans because of all the oppression and repression they received from Democrats. That's why. We played the video in the beginning, Evo Son. Maybe you wasn't here showcasing that. He says, I agree with you, only that politics won't exist yet. Neither side of the aisle care about investing on black men to get the best. Yes, Republicans' interests are not in black men. They're not. They could care less because that's not their voter base. They're not. But people don't frame it as that. If I own a business, my business is going to cater to my clientele. I'm not going to be worried about outsiders that's not putting dollars or spending any currency with me. The black community, by and large, does not spend any currency with the Republican Party. And the currency with the Republican Party is your vote. Black Americans don't vote Republican by and large. They vote Democrat by and large. So who should be culpable for the black community's political failures should be the Democrat Party that you spend majority of your political currency with. Not the Republican Party. You're too busy calling them racist. Oh, they don't give a damn about us. Why should they? You don't support them. Just like if I have a business or if I have a platform, then YouTube, if you don't support me, I don't give a damn about anything you got going on. That's just logic. And Trump went out on a limb and helped the black community and did certain things with Scott, what is he, a congressman or a senator? I can't remember which one, that came up with the opportunity zones, and he did a few more things that assisted us. Right? I think black women entrepreneurship went up under his regime. So he did things, but he went out on a limb. Because you know what's going to happen? You're going to get little payout. It's not going to be reciprocated. Because so many of our black people have bought into the lie of the Democrat Party. And, sadly, it's not going to change. I'm going to make videos like this, and people like you are going to come on and say, well, nobody going to help us. And then majority of our people still going to be Democrats. It is what it is. That's the reality we live in. Ramon Yao said, I remember when people was trying to get me to register to vote, they literally tried to force me to be a Democrat. I told them, don't want to choose a side. They were pissed. Yeah, you got to be, if you're black, you got to be Democrat. I'm very vocal about Republicans because I am in support of the nuclear family. I am support of school choice. I'm support of small business. I want to become a small business owner. So I am pro all those things. Democrats are not pro those things. They're pretty much on the opposite side. They want to teach your children about homosexuality. Why would you want to teach a kindergartner about homosexuality, a sexual fucking preference? Shouldn't you be teaching them how to spell, how to read, giving them the rudimentary in the basics of education? Why are we even worried about sexuality at the age? It just blows my fucking mind. They want to allocate our tax dollars to pay for sexual reassignment surgeries for people under the age of 18, and they can tell their parents that. Well, actually, they don't have to tell their parents nothing. They can just go to the hospital and get the funding and get the SRS surgery and change themselves from male to female or female to male without the consent of a parent. These are the things that Democrats are arguing for. I don't give a damn about none of that stuff. Republicans make sense. Small business, give incentives to small business, give incentives to opportunity zones to open businesses there. Nuclear families, they believe in two-parent homes, the traditional way. They believe in these things. So, of course, I'm going to lean in them naturally. A lot of y'all not, because y'all on this white people the devil shit. Okay, fine. This is why I say the way that our community is molded, it will make individuals, because those that don't agree with those things, they're just going to do their own thing by themselves. That's just how it goes. I guess we can end this video. I was going to play another one. Kedrick says, we don't know politics and have no strategy. Party affiliation should only be for politicians, not us. We should have a list of demands and vote our interests. We are politically illiterate. I agree. I agree. We don't have a list of demands. We are emotionally emotionally moved by politicians, and they're just going there and throwing there, oh, racist people are on the right, racist people are conservative, racist people are Republicans. Don't listen to them. Vote for me. And that's been pretty much the playbook and has worked all these years. And I don't see Republicans reversing that, or I don't see our people reversing that. Ramal Yahoo says, bro, Democrats fund my city and always in the news for scandals of stealing money from our people. Look up Baltimore mayor's corrupt. A white news anchor say maybe we need a white mayor and got fired. Yeah, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Yeah, and that's not to say that Republicans, I'm not saying Republicans are, angels or nothing like that, but I agree with their platform. I don't agree with Democrats' platform. Todd Mike said, yo, have you reviewed when Angela Stanton King was on the Breakfast Club? That would be a dope review. No, is that sister the Republican sister from Atlanta? Yeah, I think Angela Stanton King, that sounds familiar. Let me look at my list because I got a list of black Republicans. Hold on. Let me check my list out real quick. It might be in here. Angela Stanton King sounds familiar. Yep, Angela Stanton King in Georgia. I got her in my notes. Yep, I know of her. I don't think I've seen her review on that. Did she go to prison? I can't remember if she's an ex-con or not, but her story is powerful. If I can remember, when I get off here, I'll go check it out, and then I'll definitely review it on the page. Yeah, I love that sister, man. I try to support, the black Republicans because they're already castigated by the community, right? Oh, you're black and you're a Republican? Oh, how could you? How dare you? Oh, oh, throw tomatoes at him. You hate your people. You hate yourself. You know how it go. Ramal Yahoo. Kimberly Klacik tried to run for Republicans, was it Senate or Congresswoman? I can't remember. And she lost because, she couldn't get the support. We need a Republican office. We never had one in recent history. The Democrats go into the poor neighborhoods and to the homeless and get their votes. It's crazy here during election time. Yeah, Kimberly Klacik was trying to solve poverty by saying the employment constituency program, where those abandoned houses, they would pay the people that are without homes in Baltimore to fix them. So what do you solve? You solve two problems. You pretty much essentially two birds, one stone, right? Homelessness and poverty, because now you gave them a job and you gave them a home, because after they built those homes, those abandoned homes, they begin to live in them. That's the employment constituency plan that Kimberly Klacik was, supporting. And she wanted to implement that in the city of Baltimore, but she lost. Why? Because majority of our people don't give a damn about none of that. They don't don't care about that. As long as you start, the Democrats win because they're going to go in there and give the race narrative. Oh, you poor blacks, and you poor this, and you poor that, and that wins our people over all the damn time. So it's not about plan of action. It's about, placating to your emotions. Ramal Yahoo says, I'm a Republican. I tell people all the time. I tell people I'm a Republican too, brother. I have no qualms about it. I am a staunch Republican because I believe in those fundamental values. And that's not going to change anytime soon. James, you missed about 2 hours of me covering Lamont pretty much getting beat up by Christopher. Why am I forgetting this guy's name now? Christopher Rufo. He pretty much destroyed him on CRT. Todd Mike said homelessness, training, and jobs. Exactly. You solve homelessness and you give these people jobs with the employment constituency program. I think that was a beautiful program. And if implemented, it could have actually facilitated change. Democrats always talking about, oh, there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change. Obama said there needs to be a change. All these people say there needs to be a change, but they're doing everything to drive our people into a stupor instead of help them. Oh, really, Kedrick? Kimberly Klasick and Kwame Brown doing a lot together lately. I got to check that out, man. I've been out the loop, man. I've been working, so I haven't been able to YouTube as much. Ramal Yahoo said, everyone homeless here, bro. They don't even have shelters here. They give homes to people who don't work, while the people that work and have kids are on the waiting list and are homeless. I was at Home Depot today picking up supplies, and I saw someone outside Home Depot. He was like, look, man, I'm just trying to work and feed my family. And I'm like, man, like the situation you in, and I told him where to go get a job or whatever, but it's just crazy when you think about it. People that's hard working and whatnot, they should have stuff for them as well. James Cassell, my brother, he says young black men are going to jail less and voting Republican more and more and more. Yeah, we do have an uprising where more black people are becoming Republican, but I think the vast majority, like it's an uphill battle, bro. Vast majority has bought into a lie. I don't want to move from it. Even if I bring up something about Republicans, it's going to be 1,000 black people in the comments on the live saying, "Oh, fuck the Republicans, they racist." Da, da, da. And all that talk is going to do is keep people comfortably with Democrats, which is fine. It is what it is. It is what it is. I think let me play this last clip, man. This guy is flamboyant. I don't want to hear nothing he's a conservative, but he's flamboyant. I'm just gonna put it out there like that. And I don't want to hear nothing from the liberals because y'all support LGBTQ, right? Y'all support all that. So don't even get on my page saying nothing about this. Let me play this next video here with Marc Lamont. Hold on, before I do that, how about I do this instead? Let me go to the actual video and read this comment, man. So this is a video with the brother I was calling flamboyant right here, Herschel Walker. He's a conservative, and he said a very few poignant points that I thought stood out. But look at this. Donna Eltina Nash. My question, though, is why is that most black conservatives in public sphere almost always come off as anti-black? Is it that this anti-blackness has to be a prerequisite to being a conservative or being allowed to represent the party in a public setting? And here's the thing. When you watch this video, the stuff he's saying is far from anti-black. If anything, it's pro the people that you call black, right? It's pro, education. It's pro familiar structure. It's pro upward mobility. So you know what? We're going to watch it just because this comment she said, is it that this anti-blackness has to be a prerequisite to being a conservative or being allowed to represent the party in a public setting? I don't understand why one can't be a black conservative who is proudly pro-black in support of CRT being taught in schools. What does CRT being taught in schools have to do with being pro-black? I don't get it. And this goes back to this monolith thing where black people try to make seem like everybody has to agree on every point. No, we don't. I don't agree with CRT being taught in schools. And I don't agree with the Democratic Party, which you probably voted for, right? So I have a feeling these guys wake every day low than being born in their skin. No, how do you know that? Oh, they just hate being black. They hate their skin color because they have a disagreement on a political view. You follow a very racist, closet racist party that does nothing but destroy and limit black people. Like that's, man, this is just silly as hell. All right. Let's watch the video that she was commenting on. Let's watch this video. Watch this. I'm gonna load this file. And that comment just reveals how idiotic one can be. When you try to be like, oh, well, you're anti-black because you didn't agree with this politician or you didn't agree. Like, man, what's the issue? Hold on, here it is. I found it.
Joining me on Black News Tonight, I'm Marc Lamont Hill. We start tonight with our continuing coverage of the Kim Potter trial. She is the former Brooklyn Center officer charged in the death of Dante Wright. The entire incident boils down to Potter confusing her gun and her taser. She claims the tanker in Haiti has left at least 60 dead and dozens more injured. According to local officials, Joe Biden as been trending after he made a video about gas prices, which went viral.
Y'all said Joe Biden was going to be the great unifier? This is divisive to my bank account and my hard-earned money. But I was voting for the guy who was going to destroy America. You were paying $30 for gas under my guy.
He was slammed by some on social media for wearing a Givenchy sweatshirt marked at $1,200.
Hey, you know what's funny about this? Because what he's saying is true, but what's going to happen is, oh, well, Biden doesn't have any control over gas prices. But when Trump was the president, y'all blamed the pandemic on him. A damn disease, a damn virus got blamed on the president and the presidential cabinet. Oh, yeah, the virus is the Trump fault. The country is in uproar because of Trump. The virus spread because of Trump. Like, I was like, everybody was blaming Trump for the pandemic. I'm like, but we can't blame Biden for high gas prices. Watch this.
Dollars, maybe even 13, while complaining about gas prices going up since the election of Joe Biden. Walker responded to these criticisms with another video.
Yes, Todd, that is Herschel Walker's son.
I'm sorry that my parents were lazy on the couch all day waiting for handouts. I'm sorry that they built businesses and won championships. And now I can shop at Fendi and Givenchy.
He joins me now. Christian Walker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Let me start by just stipulating something. I am not asking the following questions as a Joe Biden supporter. I'm not a Joe Biden supporter. I have been critical of Joe Biden, as have many people, some of whom voted for Joe Biden. My question, actually, let me add one more thing. I'm also not one of those people that would engage the logical fallacy that you can't be critical of gas prices while wearing Givenchy. Your point was valid whether or not you got on a $1,300 sweatshirt or whether you got on a $13 sweatshirt, which is what I wear. So I ain't mad at you for what you're wearing. I see an irony in it, but I ain't mad at it. So I want to put those two things aside so we don't spend too much time arguing about that or disagreeing on that, because we don't disagree. My question for you is much simpler. What does Joe Biden have to do with gas prices?
Well, I think this idea that I saw a lot of Democrats on Twitter trying to drum up that I was saying that Joe Biden has a lever on his desk or a button on his desk where he can just click or pull and increase or decrease gas prices. That's not what I was trying to get at all. What I was alluding to was the fact that week one of Biden's administration, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He's done nothing to foster relations with OPEC, and he's actually declared war on oil and gas production companies. As he's seen his poll numbers drop, he has started playing in and releasing and giving permits out to other oil and gas production companies. In August, or no, it was November 17th, he reopened drilling on the Gulf of Mexico. So he very much understands that oil and gas production and American citizens look at him as being someone who fosters whether or not oil and gas goes up or whether we have good relationships with oil and gas production companies. So he is to blame a bit, although it's not like he has a button on his desk where he can automatically increase oil and gas in the country.
So you're making 2 points that I think are important that I want to take up, and I take them very seriously. The first thing I'd say is the analysis you just offered, while I still disagree, is much more sophisticated and nuanced than what you did on the TikTok video or maybe it wasn't TikTok. I'm not good with the social media names, but I saw it on Twitter. But where you simply said gas prices were $30 to fill this tank under President Trump, and now they're I think the video showed $90 under Biden. That was suggesting that Biden had the lever on the button, so to speak, or his hand on the lever, so to speak. That said, I think you raised a couple interesting points here. One, the Keystone Pipeline, Joe Biden absolutely stopped, right? But there's absolutely no dispute that the Keystone Pipeline wasn't going to produce a drop of oil for many, many years. So even if he had not done that, it wouldn't have affected gas prices. OPEC nations are absolutely manipulating the supply. There's no doubt about that. To say that he's, waged war on OPEC nations seems a bit interesting. I mean, I don't know if he's waged war on Gabon or Algeria or Saudi Arabia or any of those nations. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of that. But even if he had wonderful relationships with those nations, gas prices wouldn't be radically different. In fact, I think you just said that. You said he has a bit to do with it, a bit. Are there other things he could do? Absolutely. Stopping domestic exports, sure. Maybe even go into the emergency supply, maybe, a small amount, because there are limits on how many barrels you can go into the reserve. If he did everything that Trump wanted him to do, we still would have high gas prices. And the reason they were low under Trump, as I know you know, because you're a smart young man, they were lower under Trump because we were in a pandemic and the supply was low. And so the demand wasn't there, and so the prices dropped. We all know that. There is not an economist in the world that disagrees that the gas prices aren't controlled by the president. So my question is, if we know all this information, why make the video?
Well, actually, this time last year, gas was at $2.16. Today, it's at $3.32. A lot of states were out of the intense portion of the pandemic a year ago today. You look at Florida, you look at Texas.
I'm gonna continue this video. But someone said something. Where is that? Keitry said, "Wasn't it over 80% in the beginning? I rarely meet people in real life who support him." No, yeah, a lot of black people have buyer's remorse on Biden, but the fact still remains, you supported him. Even when he won, he said, thanks to the black community. He thanked the black community for him winning. He gave you guys props. As far as people, they could not like him or whatnot, but at the end of the day, they're never going to move from the platform. A lot of these people, they're going to vote Democrat regardless. Even me and my brother, we were having this discussion about people saying, oh, well, we need to vote for younger Democrats. Maybe the older Democrats are the problem, but the ideology is the same. You're still pushing for these weird policies instead of actually things that can actually help black communities. So it's a quagmire. It's the best way I can explain it.
So this idea that we only had low gas prices during the pandemic portion of Trump's administration is false. We were never at an average across the nation of $3.32 like we are today. Again, like I said earlier, some of his policies and not fostering good relationships, not trying at all to foster good relationships with some of these OPEC nations does affect gas prices at least a bit. Yeah, the video is embellished. I never said my tank was $30. I said you were paying $30 as I was talking to working class families. And now I'm hearing from working class followers of mine that they're paying upwards of $60 every time they go to the gas station. Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years with President Obama. He absolutely knows how this works and he could be doing more. And that was basically the point of the video.
Gotcha. So, and just so that I'm clear, you're saying a year ago gas prices were still higher than they are now. That's even though we were out of the pandemic. Did I understand you correctly?
No, last year, a year ago today, the average of gas prices across the nation were $2.16, and today it's $3.32. A lot of states last year at this time still had great COVID numbers. They had similar COVID numbers to today. Florida and Texas were out of the intense portion of the pandemic a year ago today. So this idea that we only
I think we're on the.
low gas. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. There's a slight delay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh no, just this idea that we only had low gas prices in the pandemic portion of the Trump administration is just not the truth. We had low gas prices for majority of the Trump administration, and I didn't come on the show to defend the Trump administration, but that's just not true.
Right. Well, I agree with that. It's not true, and that wasn't the argument that I was making. My argument was only, and we can move on to another topic, so we don't spend, because there's a lot of interesting stuff for us to talk about. But my point was only that as people are coming outside more and the demand is more, it's going up. The demand is greater now for gas than it was a year ago. That's why. And as well as the manipulation on the supply side. So that's why the prices are going up. My only point, and again, I don't think we're disagreeing here, is that market conditions, OPEC nation conditions, are the reason why gas prices are what they are. And I just found it curious that, and as you said, your video was exaggerated.
Wouldn't that talk to his point? Wouldn't that talk towards Brother Christian Walker's point? That OPEC nations manipulation of prices, and Biden has not been, too favorable towards those peoples or those groups or organizations or whatever you want to call them, right? Wouldn't that speak towards this point? I'm just saying. Marc Lamont be double speaking, bruh.
You used a different word, but you said your video was exaggerated. It's that exaggeration, I think, that some people would consider disinformation. That when we put out information that we know exaggerates a condition, overstates a condition, or misrepresents a circumstance, it can lead voters to think, oh my God, if Trump were president, gas would be low. If Trump were president, or if Biden were not president and someone other Democrat president, maybe circumstances would be different. And the truth is, there's just very little that we can do about these things. But I want to move on to another thing you said before we go to commercial. Or do I think I need to go to commercial now. So let me take the break, come back, and I want to hear you talk about this position you have on race in America, because it's very interesting. And I also want to hear about your father's campaign. Your father, of course, is running for the U.S. Senate out of Georgia, and I want to know why you think he's a good candidate. So
yeah, man. Hey, Lamont trying to do a service for the Democrat Party. What he's doing is he's trying to get all the black conservatives on his channel and show that, oh, these niggas don't know what the hell they talking about. Don't follow him. You know what I'm saying? Hey, James, if Trump was president and gas prices as high as they was now, Lamont be on here blaming Trump. Let's keep it a buck.
So hang right here, everybody. Stay right here. I'll be back with more Christian Walker. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. We're back with the conservative social media personality and political commentator Christian Walker, discussing his opinions on the current culture wars. Your father, Herschel Walker, is running for a Senate seat from Georgia. How do you feel your social media presence will influence his campaign?
I'm not directly attached to the campaign. I'm not working on the campaign. I will be doing and have done a couple events for the campaign as I'm excited about his race. However, I'm not sure what the effect will be. I think I do have a connection to working class Americans. I have a lot of working class Americans and just Georgians, period, who follow me and enjoy my content. So hopefully it helps out. But do I think it's going to damage it at all, like the Democrats are tweeting? Absolutely not.
When you made your video the other day and you said, the kind of boo-hoo video, and you're like, I'm sorry my parents weren't lazy and they actually got up and worked and, built businesses and did things like that. Can you see how a comment like that would make a working class American feel insulted?
How would that make a working class American feel? I'm a working class American. I didn't feel insulted by that. His message was, hey, I'm able to afford this particular type of clothing because my family is known for hard work. I don't know how that would make anybody feel away. Like, and here's another thing. A lot of people in the black community listen to these rappers, and these rappers do nothing but braggadocious rapping, where they rap about, I got Coogee, I got Gucci, I'm driving a Bugatti, and all this. Does that offend hardworking people? Why would that offend anybody? Like, this is a dumbass question posed by Marc Lamont, the liberal.
or to make a person who's struggling, someone who's working poor, feel as if you're blaming their condition on their laziness and not the economic circumstances? Could you at least see that position?
No, I can't see it. All of the working class followers of mine loved the video because they saw that a lot of Democrats were refusing to engage with the point I was making, that gas prices were high, and instead wanted to focus on my Givenchy sweater and my Range Rover. So I made a video saying, oh, am I supposed to be ashamed that my parents worked hard? That has nothing to do with working class people. Americans, whether you're poor, rich, or anywhere in between, can care about issues that don't directly affect them. Yes, I can afford $98 gas, but I care about my fellow working class American citizens. That's what the video was about, and it was about Democrats refusing to engage with my point and instead distracting on some of the material items that I have. That had nothing to do with the conversation. It was a funny video. It was a joke.
No, again, I remember I started this conversation by saying, I'm not taking issue with your Givenchy or your Range Rover. My only point was the whole my parents worked hard. I'm telling you that many people, and maybe we live in different social media universes, which makes sense. I'm, a very old man. Many working class people I saw were insulted by that. So I'm just saying, if you're trying to reach
insulted by him saying that his family worked hard and that's why he's able to afford the things he have. Who would be insulted by that? That's the dumbest shit. Like, that don't make any sense, bro. Oh, we're insulted that this guy would say his family worked hard and he's able to afford a $1,200 shirt or whatever. Like, who gives a fuck? Like Todd like said, it would be funny if he said, I don't give a fuck how them niggas feel. Next question. That's something I would say if I was invited on this show. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, real talk.
Out across the aisle, and not just the people who already follow you and already agree with you, it could be a very complicated thing. Another thing you talked about was critical race theory. You said critical race theory is just as racist as a white supremacist. Do you really think that someone who studies or believes in critical race theory is the same as someone who identifies as a white supremacist?
I think someone who sees or only sees the world through the lens of race is acting like a white supremacist would act.
That's a fact too, man. We talk about it on the show all the time. Like, a lot of you niggas on here are white supremacists at heart. Like, the way y'all think is some white supremacist, talking points. But what was said earlier about dividing what the professor or the author, that analyzed CRT and talked about CRT and has been a proponent of getting CRT banned. He pretty much brought up there's instances when it's been practiced where it's pretty much racist, where you're teaching white people that, oh, you're prepackaged with all of the things that you need to be successful, like timeliness and punctuality. Like, are you fucking kidding me? No one's prepackaged with that. You're taught those things. Those are behavior traits that we learn and observe and are taught while we're living. It has nothing to do with us being prepackaged doing anything. And you low-key saying white people are superior to black people when you say stuff like that. And Lamont is some support of that. Like, what the hell? Stop it.
Teaching kids that they're oppressors and victims is straight up wrong, and I know there's a lot more layers to critical race theory than simply that. But yes, I do.
I guess again, I'm noticing a pattern here, and I find this interesting. Respectfully, your answers are more nuanced than the headline. And I think my concern about the current political moment, not just you, not Democrats, not just Republicans, is that the headlines are so unnecessarily provocative and unnecessarily unnuanced that they put us into a fight where we can't actually have a conversation.
Nigga, that's journalism. That's always been a theme. Like, even with scientific journals or scientific articles, the headline will be something that's so spectacular, or, oh, I can't believe that this. Then you get to the article, it's nuanced, it's not really saying that. It's like, people are guessing, or other things are happening there. Same thing with you guys, the left that you support. They would go around talking about, Democrats talking about embellishment. Y'all pretty much blamed the pandemic on Trump. Y'all pretty much said that the Russians had, hacked into the voter system and cheated and allowed Trump to become the president. Y'all said all these crazy things, man. Y'all had all the tabloids, all the news channels talking about it and this conspiracy, and y'all even tried to impeach Trump. Had him go to court for all these things, these fake allegations that y'all blew up and embellished upon. But you want to talk about this young man in some tabloid or some article embellishing. Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Get the fuck out of here.
Conversation, right? And so instead of saying critical race theory is like white supremacy, we could say, I have some concerns about certain ways that race is talked about in school, but we don't do that. Do we even have the kind of cultural space to have a real conversation across the aisle and across political differences that isn't so antagonistic and unnecessarily like...
Well, tell that to your party first, because everything's antagonistic. You guys just throw the race card out there all the time when it comes to Republicans. You just say Republicans are racist. I'm a Republican. I'm not racist. I'm against racism. You support CRT, which it sounds like it's some shadow racism or some closet racism going on there, telling white people that they're prepackaged with all of the things that they need to be successful while black people aren't. You're pretty much showing a black inferiority complex. That's what you're supporting and saying white people are superior. And the guy that Christopher Rufo said about 100 years ago that was being taught to support white supremacy. And here you go, pretty much, doing the same thing, which is just fucking weird.
Like, I want to get the click. I want to get the biggest dig, and I want to dunk on somebody. I mean, that seems to me to be not the way for us to move.
I agree with you that the headlines are blown out of proportion, and there's a lot of division in the country, and we're unable to have important conversations. As far as me comparing critical race theory to white supremacy, white supremacists look at blacks as being victims and unable to think at the level that white people think. And I see critical race theories doing the same thing.
And this is why you got people that are advocating that, SAT scores need to be lowered and grades need to be lowered, because black people can't achieve those goals. They can't achieve those, those benchmarks. They can't achieve those things. So we need to lower it because black people are incapable. Just like I brought out earlier, when they were talking about the voter registration laws. Oh, it's racist against black people. Republicans are racist against black people because they're requiring people to have ID. And we know black people, they don't have the ability to go to the DMV or go to the Department of License and Registration. They can't go to any of these places. They're not, they don't have the money. They don't have the ability to. They don't have the know-how to. You're pretty much saying black people are just dumb people that are like children that need their hand held on everything, and they can't get something as simple as ID. And I've never met a black person in my life that did not have an ID or driver's license. But this was going on CNN, MSNBC. This was a talking point. Roland Martin even brought it up and said that Republicans were racist because they were requiring voter ID or picture ID to vote. And I'm like, yo, first of all, I never met a black person that didn't have ID, that was of age, right? ID or some kind of license. I never met anybody like that. Majority of the people that I know that are quote unquote black have they have IDs. Dumbass. So I do believe liberals are closet and shadow racists. They're white supremacists. They believe that white people are prepackaged with the things that they need to become successful, and black people are just illiterate children that need to be put in their place. To be treated like, they're retarded or something, man. That's white supremacy.
So there are comparisons that I can draw between the two, and that's what I draw. Now, if a headline wants to blow that out of proportion and say critical race theorists are on the same level of white spread or whatever, that's on the headline. I stand by my statements and can back my statements up.
Well, I'll be happy to ask you to do that. Where in critical race theory does it argue that what you just suggested, that black people can't think for themselves, or that black people are perpetual victims, and the white people are perpetual oppressors in relation to?
It's funny that he's going to ask this question, act as if Rufo didn't just beat his ass in the episode prior to this. Rufo pretty much gave several examples of classroom examples of, teachers pretty much, practitioners of CRT, showing that white people are oppressors and black people are oppressed, just judging them off their skin color and pretty much typecasting everyone based off this theory. Stop it.
Black victimhood. Where in critical race theory does it say that?
What do you mean where in critical race theory? When you see critical race theory taught in schools or applied, maybe not necessarily the theory itself, but when it's applied and different subjects are taught through a critical theorist lens, that's how it's applied. I see a lot of failed connections between the academic class and American citizens who are affected by how the academic class applies their academia. Kids in schools are being taught that they're oppressors and victims because of critical race theory. That might not be what critical race theory itself states in the theory, but when it's applied, yeah, that's how it's applied.
And I guess my point is, I hear this argument from the right all the time, and I've had...
He says, I hear this argument from the right all the time, but I never heard... Nigga, Rufo basically broke it down to you. Stop it. We just watched the entire clip of Rufo pretty much killing all your points. And he gave you example after example after example. You done, man. And you want to pretend like I didn't hear anything. That's called special pleading. That's a logical fallacy.
Everybody on this show, James Lindsay, Christopher Rufo, John McWhorter, Glenn Lowry, Vernon Jones, who's from Georgia, running for governor, I think. And I have yet to meet somebody who's pointing to me where this thing is happening, where people are told that black people are victims. I haven't found a curriculum, I haven't found a school district, I haven't found a homework assignment that shows this. And when I ask people for examples, they go, well, I can't just give you an example off the top of my head, but this seems, I would think that if this is the argument that's being promoted, there would be some evidence of it. Do you have any?
Well, what do you mean by evidence? The evidence was that parents were upset in Virginia, and a lot of even college-educated white women that typically vote for the Democrats came out in droves for the Republican candidate for governor because their kids were learning things like this in school. This is why so many parents were going to the school board meetings. So when you're asking for evidence, what
were they learning? I'm still not clear. I'm just asking, what were they learning?
That their kids are oppressors or victims. That white people are.
I'm not sure.
And what he's saying is true. That is what they were complaining to the board about. If you can look this up about the parents that were upset at the what their children were learning, that was involved with CRT, and one of the complaints was, oh, we're just being relegated to oppressors, and all of my children learn that they're oppressors. So that's actually a real world example, and Marc Lamont's going to sweep it under the fucking rug because he's disingenuous.
I've looked at, if I think we're talking about the same city, I looked at the curriculum, I looked at the homework assignment, and nowhere did it say oppressor or victim. What I'll do is, I don't want to put you on the spot and make this a gotcha, right? So I would ask you to
I just think the proof is in the pudding. When all the parents went and voted, and I think that is the proof.
No, no, that proves that the parents were upset about something. What I'm saying is the thing that
they said they were upset about what you just said that didn't exist. They said that they were learning and being relegated. What, they just made that shit up? Oh, they relegated everything, relegated them to oppressors and teaching them that way. Like, it's there. That's an example. Oh, no, I combed through all. No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. You're a liar. So all those people lying. Oh, yeah, it's white fragility. They're just lying. For what?
The thing that you're representing as the target of their outrage, I'm saying, isn't really true. And I'm saying, as opposed to making this a gotcha, what I want to do is say to you, If you find this, you're welcome to come back on the show and show it, or you can tweet it to me and I'll engage you in social. I don't want to be like, I won the argument because you don't know the curriculum off the top of your head. But I'm telling you respectfully, sorry, my earpiece fell, that it doesn't exist.
So question, do you think that, just a question for you, do you think the parents are just upset about something they just made up and drummed up in their head? Is that your position?
No, my position is that, my position is that, and we've seen this in New Jersey. We've seen this just last week. I had someone from the Westfield School District in New Jersey. We've had the same conversation. I had it with a state rep from Utah. I've had it here in Georgia. Is that conversations about race, conversations about racism are then understood to mean or interpreted to mean, oh, this is about victimhood and oppressor. No one's saying victimhood and oppressor. But for example, a book like Skin Like Me was opposed in Westfield, New Jersey, because it pointed to the fact that race and racism was an invention of white people, right? The idea of race. As a concept in the scientific use of race. That, for example, is not teaching oppression and victimhood, but it is making a claim about race. And I'm saying the parents are outraged about that. I agree with you that there are a bunch of white parents outraged about race talk. I'm just saying that what you're describing as the content of the curriculum is not representative of what's really happening. But I want you to hang in, because I'm going to hold you for another block. You're so interesting to me, and I really enjoy talking to you, and I'm glad we're having a civil conversation where we're not yelling over each other and all the things that often happen in these things, that I want you to hang out for another block. We'll talk a little bit more. I got a couple more questions to ask you. Sound good? All right. We'll be back. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. We're back on the show with the conservative social media personality and political commentator Herschel Walker, who is discussing his opinions on the current culture wars. You say that black people are more racist than white people. What does that mean?
I've said that because in my experience, a lot of black people can get away with their racism publicly without getting fired from their jobs, without experiencing any punishment from schools. And so I think there's a lot more outward racism from black people against white people, groups like white people, than from white people in 2021 towards black people.
Man, everybody know he telling the truth, man. Outwardly, black people have been racist. They say racist shit towards white people and to other black people. We pointed this out on shows prior. And Marc Lamont's going to act like, no, this isn't a thing. This doesn't happen. Like, are you fucking kidding me? White people, you know, we have this thing. Black community has this thing. White people can't say the word nigga, but we can say some of the most egregious things to them on public platforms. Say they could die. You got groups that's got, you know, making them kiss their boots and all type of shit. If white people were doing that publicly, come on, man. Y'all be like, oh, look at this racist bullshit. Y'all be calling it out, calling it racist. Come on, man. He got a point.
What kind of black people are being so publicly racist and not losing jobs?
You can say whatever you want about a white person and not get fired from your job. You say one comment about a black person, you're done.
Do you have any examples? Again, I'm just asking.
I can give you an example because I was in Dallas when it happened. When that AT&T exec had a racist comment, right? Y'all know the dancing African. He made a racist comment saying like black people on Fridays are monkeys. It was something like that to the effect, and he got fired for that. That text message leaked out somehow. I don't know who leaked it out, but everybody knew about it. And then, you know, you had black people even protesting outside of AT&T, right? With their picket signs or whatnot. Oh, he's racist, and all these things. He actually lost his job for that. So actually, we do have examples of that when people are express racism or even in a joking manner. White people do lose their jobs on that. It'll be disingenuous for us to say that doesn't happen. But we've heard black people say some of the most egregious things about not just white people, Asian people. We laugh at it at the comedy shows. We don't hear white people, by and large, at comedy shows saying, you know, racist things about black people as a joke, right? Not to the same effect as we see black people doing it. So he does have a point. We have an issue with being genuine and being honest. Just to be honest some goddamn times. Yes, in a lot of ways, outwardly, black people are more racist, and they're not afraid to say some of these egregious things that if anyone else said them, they will be ostracized for them. Just keep it a buck.
There's so many, I can't even come up with one right now. Even on Twitter Space.
There are so many that you can't come up with any.
No,
You're just like a log jam of examples, and you just can't.
I have a plethora of classmates who call people mayo monkeys, who call people crackers, who call people this and that. If a white student says the N-word, they're automatically expelled from schools, as they probably should be. Black people can say whatever they want. You're not getting expelled from school.
All right, so back to the question, which was about these public firings of people.
Yeah, black, you know, I mean, this is a general rule. It can be said, they can say negative things about other races and other cultures. Not so much Jews. If they say something about Jews, the ADL coming for their ass. We know that, right? We know that. And if they say something about LGBT, you know, they're going to get shut down. You know what I'm saying? They even tried to attack Dave Chappelle on that. But for the most part, if Black Americans want to say something racially egregious, they pretty much have the license to do so. And we don't have to be disingenuous about that, Mark.
With jobs, do you know of any, or are you still log jammed with the example? So I can move on. I'm happy to move on to another question.
Public firings of white people, or public
of black people. You're saying that black people don't get. You're saying black people say all these things about white people and don't get fired, and then white people say things about black people and do get fired. And ask for examples. You said there were so many you couldn't think of any.
For example, all of my classmates that like to go on my Instagram page and call me a coon, call me a house Negro, call white people mayo monkeys in the comments, call white people crackers, and they are not expelled from UCLA at all.
Gotcha. Okay, so we pivoted to your
That's why I said I had.
I'm not asking you.
I was trying to think of names.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Initially, we were talking about public firings on jobs, and now we've pivoted to the university experience, your school experience, which is fine. I'll just move over. Move on to something else. How do you think progressives promote black victimhood over black, as you call it, victorhood?
I think progressives engage with the black community from a side of victimhood, and they try to reach out to the black community by saying, you know, you're oppressed in America, or there's all these systems put in place to hold you down, instead of uplifting successful black people like you, Mark, who have made a name for themselves, and clearly the system has not affected you to the point that you...
Exactly. Mark is worth $1 million or some bullshit right there, right? And he's out here preaching his victimhood shit, and black people can't do this, can't do that. But obviously you're black and you're able to achieve these things. Oh, the likelihood of black people, well, maybe because those three things that Rufo was telling you is not important in our community: education, family, and job participation. Those three things, I can get niggas on here right now that's gonna argue me down and say, no, we don't need families, we don't need education, and we don't need job participation. I can get people on here right now to say those things. And those three things, those three ingredients is what we're missing, and we're not even trying to advocate for it. We've done shows about it, and the pushback we get is from Black Americans. So that's on point what Christian Walker is saying.
You couldn't become successful or get an education or build a platform for yourself. And so I think it's kind of not helpful in engaging the black community to become successful in America.
Is it possible for successful black people?
Right. We should be able to tell, just as much as y'all harp on victimhood and harp on how bad it is for black people, which, you know, a lot of these bad situations are created and maintained by Democrats, right? Because like we've already established, most of this stuff is going on in cities ran by Democrats. Why not show another light? Like you, why not show black people how you got successful, Mark? No, that doesn't get the views, right?
to say, look, despite these circumstances, I've become successful, but there are still conditions that make life harder. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an extreme example. Again, your father's from Georgia, right? He is from the same state as, let me use a better example. I'll take your father off the table for a moment. There are people who are forced to go to substandard public schools in Georgia. There are people who are victims of food insecurity, people who don't have access to clean running water, people who don't have access to safe housing conditions, and some of them will make it to Emory University.
Clean housing, clean water. What is he talking about? Flint, Michigan? Type in Flint, Michigan and tell me who the city officials are and what party affiliation they have. Type it in. Like I said, what he's failing to mention is a lot of these examples and situations are applicable to the Democrat Party, which makes the Democrat Party culpable. But we want to ignore that and say, yeah, fuck you, Republicans and conservatives. You guys are racist. You're white supremacists. You hate black people. Okay, fine. Throw all the labels on us. But the fact of the matter is, wherever Democrats run, the cities that are ran by Democrats, black people suffer the most. It's just that fucking simple.
Or they'll go on to Morehouse or Harvard or Yale or wherever, and they'll be successful. But that wouldn't be an argument for not addressing those systemic issues. If the bulk of us are still struggling with these issues, why would you want to point to the extremes or the outliers of our society?
I don't think they're outliers, and to say that it's only black people struggling in the nation with these issues, there's also white people as well. So why is that being ignored as though this is only a black issue? It's an American issue.
Well, no, I never said only black people.
That killed it right there. But also this struggle thing, this struggle story, a lot of it's self-induced. A lot of it is because we support counterproductive policies and counterproductive ways. Again, we're anti-family by and large. Many of you niggas want to just have sex with a bunch of women and don't care about creating legacies and creating families. You don't give a fuck about that. All you care about is getting in her drawers and busting a fucking nut. You don't care about, hey, I'm going to be this woman's husband. You worried about getting a long, a woman is nothing but a notch on your fucking belt, right? So you just want to have a long repertoire of women that you fucked. That's all you care about. Oh, I'm young. I'm doing me. Well, okay, at the expense of the black community, say bye-bye black community, because can't have both. Can't have you doing you and have a community. Keep doing you. It's been very destructive and has done nothing but destroy us. Well, hey, the liberals love it because you're gonna create those slave breeding plantations. See, back in during slavery, they had slave breeding plantations, and now the project is slave breeding plantations. A lot of these fatherless parent homes, because back then you probably wouldn't know your mother or your father too, right? Because you get torn from them and then sold into another plantation. It's like that now. You got a slave breeding plantation, which is known as the projects today. These people are growing up without parental guidance. These people are growing up off the government, I'm about to say government cheese, the welfare state or whatnot. And then, once you mess up because Obama said it, not people that are raised in a single parent home are 9 to 10 times likely to be incarcerated. Now you're going to be put into slavery because incarceration is the only legal way to put you in slavery. Now you're getting paid pennies on a dollar, literally. And you're funneling into a multi-billion-dollar industry known as the prison industrial complex. So these rich white liberals, they don't give a damn. You feeding into the system.
Were struggling, that would be a straw man. I was responding to the question about black victimhood, and you were saying point to the successful black people. I was saying that black people. I wasn't saying that there were no poor white people any more than you were saying there were only successful black people. I was only following your example. But my point is that
you asked about how progressives engage with the black community on a perspective of victimhood rather than victorhood. So that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I got you. And I'm saying that, I don't think pointing to the structural conditions that we're forced to deal with, worse public schools, more likely to be arrested for the same crimes as our white counterparts, being sentenced and charged and sentenced for longer amounts of time. We could go on down the list, right? Paying more for the same loans, having higher interest rates for the same loans, even with the same credit score as our white counterparts. There's
per capita.
Say that again?
I'm going to answer this right here. How Malcolm and MLK warned us about liberals and we still fell for it. I'm going to tell you how. Because liberals are conniving. These people are crafty. And what they do is CRT. Oh, we're going to teach you guys about how white people are inherently racist, or racism is like something that all white people have, or some bullshit like that. Why? To pull on your heartstrings. Oh, these people actually care about us. They're actually fighting against racism. Blah, 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 and all this other bullshit, right? So now they're going to get your emotional vote. They're going to rebel rouse you and tell you Republicans are racist and they hate you. You're going to believe it. Oh, we know Republicans are racist and they hate us because I heard it on CNN, MSNBC. Marc Lamont, supports it. Blah, blah, blah. So that's how. It's just been, decades and decades and decades upon, using pastors and preachers and, Jesse Jackson and all of them, like using them to just manipulate the people and pull on our heartstrings and keep us emotional. We're victims. Look how bad we're treated. But if we step back and actually look what's wrong with our people, a lot of our issues are self-induced, self-inflicted. A lot of them. But you're gonna blame, gang banging is white supremacy. No, gang banging is a complex issue, and is it starts at home with single parent homes, and no parental guidance. That's where it starts. A lot of our issues actually start there. Can we fix those things? Stop having babies. Stop having babies with randoms that you don't want to fucking take care of, and stop having babies with women that you don't want to have a long-lasting relationship with that's worth something. Stop doing it. Oh, no, nobody's going to stop having sex. Okay, you have your reward, just like the Bible says. Your reward is a fucked up community that has no stability whatsoever that you want to just keep complaining about and say, oh, Mr. Democrat, can you help me? And the Democrat be like, yes, come here, son, and, hug you and put him on his chest. You start crying and shit. Like, no. And then, 10 years later, it's the same shit. I'm voting Democrat. Republicans are racist. Democrats are the heroes. And we're in the same situation as a collective. Even though you're in these cities ran by Democrats, adjudicated by Democrats. Like, come on, man. When you going to wake up and smell the fucking coffee, man? All right.
Committing a higher amount of than white people. That as well. Did you?
I don't see it. That feels like a red herring that I'm happy to talk about. I only have 30 seconds. I want to go before we go. Today, your father said that he was accountable for what he's done in the past. What was he referring to?
I don't know. I didn't see what you were talking about.
He was asked specifically about his.
All right, that's another video, bro. He's on some other shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Whatever. Y'all can watch the last 30 seconds of that nonsense. But as you can see, man, this original video where he had.
Say, you know what? I'm Italian. You know what? I have a family.
This brother on here, Rufo, pretty much beat up Marc Lamont, man. Destroyed him. We out, man. 7 gang. We Japanese still. You can cook in front of your family like a Japanese meal. It's yashuta hibachi, and none of you niggas can stop me. We out, bro. Let's get it. Let's get it, man. Hey, one more thing, though. Who'll be Republican with or without you niggas? Gang. Gang, man. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, man. You know how we rocking, man.
Mariano. Thank you, Fizzle.
Smooth was good, baby.
Don't Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Kicked around, she live 8 miles away, I did her shady. I like when bitches hit my phone randomly with payments. You thought I was going broke, you sadly mistaken. Thuggin' on 32nd, Naomi with gangin'. If you ever see the plug by its lonesome, know I stay equipped. I ain't talking about the ops, cause none of them niggas taking trips. Too focused, only thing I know is stay away from the pigs. I'm from the stink team, you can't change the way I live. A lot of these niggas don't know what patience is. A boat just landed, my plug call with a gang of trysts. A boat just landed, a 30 piece for the plainest wrist. The truth, a real nigga, most of these rappers a gang of pretenders. Tasmanian devils, I be round a gang of spinners. I'm from the stink team, bitch, you see it's a gang of winners. Real artistic in the booth to paint the picture. While your bitch got that shit on her lip, it ain't safe to kiss her. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady.
I remember when my nigga got taken. I slipped back so I was training while she baking. Sweet be acting up, what the fuck that nigga taking? They don't know about this life, they be faking. I pray to God, but in my dreams I see Satan. I put her with a mask like Jason. Put her with a mask, I had your big homie shaking. I remember I fucked this bitch in her basement. I like walk, but right now I need trees. Everybody hit, I feel like Chris. I tell all my little homies to go and take risks. You niggas only been on school trips. I ain't never went to school, I was robbing shit. Tell me what you need, I got a lot of it. Me and Rufo, we gon' pull it with a lot of clips. Wanna start beef, you gon' wanna be out of it.
Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady. Don't make me send niggas masked up like Jason. That's crazy, niggas working with the porks, I smell bacon. Bitch, pay me, but would I let you fuck, bitch, maybe? I told you I only want your money, I wasn't trying to do you shady.
Thank you, Fizzle.
Smooth was good, baby.
I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments and scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Ralphie, you can do one thing, can you care for me? I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments and scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Ralphie, you can do one thing, can you care for me? You don't want a nigga like me, I'm embarrassed. Trifling nigga sliding your friends DM on careless shit. You look broke as fuck, I wouldn't even wear that shit. I don't like to be around bums, cause all they do is stare at my wrist. Pretty broke, poor ass bum, beware of that bitch. I just want your money and guns, I swear that's it. I ain't come from trust fund, I'm a baby kid. I was really in the trenches, I'm trying to change the way I live. Don't need the praises, things we can change the way y'all live. Wasn't rockin' Mason Margiela, niggas was rockin' Dickies. We saved y'all niggas from buying all them swap meet pieces. Don't be mad at Pastor Robert, that's the facts that I be preaching. Once the game is on, it's time to play ball, that's how I be beefing. I don't sip Patron, I like codeine, that's what I be drinking. Steak, shrimp, and lobster, and cheddar potatoes is I be eating. I don't believe nothing that come out of bitch mouth, cause talk is cheap. I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments and scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Ralphie, you can do one thing, can you care for me? I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments and scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Ralphie, you can do one thing, can you care for me?
Damn shame, I done had this cake longer than my bitch. On the net you say I'm capping, these streets you need a wish. I was a semi-auto bandit till I linked up with a switch. Grown ass thug, baby Drakey in the crib. Don't feel no pressure on this bitch, nigga shaky where you live. Just the ops you gotta watch, nigga snaking where I live. Was in the cracks for a day, them niggas janky over there. Yeah, we caught him around here, but we spanked him over there. Yeah, the nigga bought paper, ain't no staples up in here. K rounds ain't take him out, but it stuck him in a chair. The way we steppin' out, bring it to a bear. Another nigga dressed up, somebody show him what to wear. Got my ear to the streets, it always tell me what to hear. Don't need no glasses on my face, show a nigga that I fear. I got my ops and they feelings, make they ass shed tears. And a rifle from Big 5, but I ain't poppin' at no deers.
I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Ralph, you can do one thing, can you care for me? I was in the field getting more bread than Sarah Lee. Most of the niggas hating on my comments is scared of me. You really left the house and what are those? That's embarrassing. She like, Ralph, you can do one thing, can you care for me?